I mean, it's the new year was what? Less than 12 hours ago, right? Um, 2026 has been an interesting year, for sure. And it's a couple highlights, good highlights. In January of 2026, in Central PA, we issued 573 leads. That was the highest amount of leads we had ever any renewal by Anderson had ever issued in 2025. I'm sorry, had ever issued in canvassing ever. Okay, 573. All right. In February, same thing. We hit a record 567. Okay, the record prior to that had been 523 and 532 respectively. In March in Central PA, again, we hit a record at 737 in March, which was up from the prior year by 16 leads. So, not an insane amount, but a decent amount. So, the first 3 months of the year, 2025, were drastically better than, um, in some circumstances, anyways, than the year prior. Then we started to run into a little bit of trouble. In April, we hit just underneath what we did the prior year. 641 was the record. 628 is what we hit. But in May, we hit 648. The prior record was 754. In June, we had the worst month that I think I've seen here uh, um, compared to the prior year. We had 754. I'm sorry, 724, and then we that was down to 583. July 773 down to 608. So something changed. August was the same. We hit 595 to 596, right? Um, and then September was the same as well. October has gone down a bit. November has gone down a bit. December should end about the same. So I bring this up because, and I want to go through a couple other examples too. Um, in North CPA, and you're going to hear me talk about Pennsylvania numbers because obviously that's what I'm familiar with prior to a couple months ago. And I don't have a sheet like this. I will this year, but for all the other offices in North, we started off the year not strong. We started off at 139, 158, 211, 209. For perspective, the year prior, 2024, we had our biggest year ever starting off, and it was 190, 196, 270, and 336. Okay. In May of 2025, we hit 208. May of 2024, 321. June of 2025, 174. June of 2024, 294. But that started to change in July. We hit 262 and then 321 in August, and we had beat the prior year. In September, we beat the prior year as well. We hit around 320, and the prior year was 273. October, we really came in at the same 301 versus like 302. November was well above. I think we came in at 276, and the prior year was 215. Something happened. Okay, in October of 2024, we went from 301 issued leads to 215 in November, 203 in December, 190 in January. It was a slow bleed. I'm sorry, 139 in January. It was a slow bleed for 3 months, and then all of a sudden 139, the worst month that we had seen in North since the beginning of 2023. Okay. So 2022, we struggled to find consistency. 131, 115, 92, 81, 87, 123. But then we had 207 in December of 2022, and we seemed to have consistency after that up until beginning of the year 2025. In West, in our West office, uh, we hit in January of 2025 173 versus 167 the year prior, 197 versus 182, 257 versus 228. That's a good rate of growth. That's a good rate of growth. when you're in a place like West Altoona, okay, look at Altoona and Williamsport is about the size combined of Southwest Missouri. Okay, so if you were to combine those two places, if you were to take State College in Altoona, you're comparing that population together with the population of like Springfield, for example. The surrounding areas, like if you were to take Williamsport and Jersey Shore, that compares with the population of like Joplin, for example. So they're very similar if you combine the territory. Um, about 3 hours driving distance across them, you know, an hour and a half one way, hour and a half the other way. So they're pretty similar. Just to give you an idea. But in West, we started off the year strong, right? I mean, we weren't breaking records, but we were, I guess, just not by a ton. April, we hit 222 versus 246 the year prior. May 243 versus 303 the year prior. In June was nail in the coffin. That was the worst month. 368, a record in 2024, 232 in 2025. Okay. And we've struggled to find consistency since. So you have to ask yourself, you look at these, they're all happening at different times, guys. Like, think about it for a second, okay? In Central, the struggling starts in about May. Okay, about May. That's really where the struggling starts. In West, I guess it's pretty similar in West. The struggling starts about April. About April. Okay? Because we were ahead of goal, you know, and you could argue, hey, 1 month down 20 leads, it's not as big of a deal, but then it gets worse and worse. June is really when it hit again. Okay. But in North, the struggling started 6 months prior to that. Okay, a little bit less, 5 months prior to that. So there's two things I want to focus on here. Okay, two things. We got to find the why, because in order to answer the question of how we don't let that happen again and how we get out of that and stay out of that, we're already out of that in some places, like North, for example, for now, knock on wood, right? Because it's you got to keep up with your shit in order for you to stay successful. Like that's the most blatant way I can put it. But it's important that we go over why this happened, and also why it doesn't really matter. The reason why you're looking at a blank page is because the start of every year is exactly that. It's a blank page. And you might go, oh, that's super cliche. Of course it is. Yeah, but it's not really. You know what I mean? Like if I'm having marriage problems in December, then in January, they don't just magically fix themselves. No, but when it comes to numbers, right? It is the start of a new year. The only thing that's important to do historically is to look back and go, okay, what happened here? To examine it, get over it, and move on, right? There's no deeper importance than that. It's not worth remembering the bad times. There's no reason why. Okay. Once you've fixed whatever it is that you're going through as a team. I think it's pretty easy to figure out. Okay. I think it's pretty easy to figure out. Let's look at North first. Okay. So North had been beating records for a couple of years. Seth started up there back in 2021, September of 2021, after briefly canvassing. So he was hired about a week before COVID. Okay. He went through training. We connected pretty well. And I'll pull up this paper so you can see what I'm seeing now before we get back to that blank page that we're going to write on. So he had 3 days of canvassing experience before COVID. I forgot about that, man. We went through a year of COVID shutdown. We were doing events and all this other stuff. And I never really thought about, this guy's never canvassed before. So we get back to canvassing. And I just assumed, hey, everybody's good because, we had the day we get told that we could go back to canvassing, we were just excited to get out there, man. Like we all met up in Huntington, PA. So roughly probably 2 hours from here. And and we knocked Huntington because the COVID virility rates or whatever were low. The number was like under 5% we had to stick to, which was ridiculous. And in cities, you could achieve that because there was so many more people. But in smaller towns, if 5 people go to get COVID tested, even if they're all negative, it's gauging how many people are getting tested. There's a stupid way to look at it, but that was corporate. I'm not gonna lie, we used whatever website benefited us, that's for sure. But we go up to Huntington and we get 5 or 6 leads apiece. And at the end of the day, I go to walk with Seth for a little bit because it's just the end of the day. I had said I would, but I was getting leads myself. I got kind of caught up in that. So I was like, it was like the last hour of the day. And uh I catch up with him and he's got 3 and I had like 5 at the time. And he goes, man, I this is kind of nerve-wracking. I've never done this before. And I'm like, what? And so we do some doors together. It gets close to the end of the day. I think I told him to go grab the car. And because we are gonna like kind of ferry up to this gas station where the other cars are parked. Gas station slash pizza place. And I go knock on this guy's door. He was straight out of Italy, just moved to the US within a couple of years. His wife answers the door, and she's much younger than him. And she is talking to me. She's a very nice lady. And she's telling me that they just got their windows replaced. The house was just built, really. But that they had some windows that they did not like in the garage. As she's talking to me, this Italian guy pulls up, and he pretends like he has a firearm on him. But he's joking with me. You know, he's messing with me. And it's a screwdriver. And he jokingly accuses me of hitting on his wife and whatnot. But I definitely, at first, I'm like, okay, dude. he was not a non-threatening guy. So we set up an appointment, and we end up. He tells me just to go to his pizza place if we ever want to go up there. So we head up there. I bring my family up there the next day to meet him because he was such a nice guy, such an interesting guy too. So I bring my family up there to get pizza, and the lead had ran. We had so many rules back then. We couldn't go into houses. We couldn't go into garages. Nothing like that. That guy kind of made me break every rule right there. He's like, just come in, trying to give me a hug and stuff like that. He was a funny guy. But when we got back from COVID, there was such an excitement to just canvas that it didn't matter what experience we had. It didn't matter that we had been out of the job for a year. The excitement to do it, you know, I mean, it's a nice time of year too. The excitement to do it was that's all we needed. We ended up averaging like 6 leads a person for the next month. We would go to these random places. I remember me and Andrew knocking in the middle of a fish hatchery in Carlisle, for example. All these cool little places. Seth had started with us right before we canvassed. He was extremely talented at dealing with people, and he had started very quickly. He, you know, and so things were going well. We didn't really have teams at the time. And he had come to me about moving up to Williamsport. And you know, it was pretty clear that that's not where he wanted to spend the rest of his life, because he had obligations down here and stuff like that, but he wanted to build something. So September of that year, we got approval to go do that. We had started canvassing that the virility rates weren't as important. The testing rates or whatever it was weren't as important. And we started going up to Panera Bread up there to do interviews. So we're gonna go over the scripting and what's changed. And this is something, guys, I think that when you look at why some companies succeed at a higher rate than others, and what the difference in the pitch is, like when you have these companies like Other Renewable by Anderson's is the best example. The most fundamental difference in what they do is in their ability to handle objections. That is what makes the difference. 100%. And it's why I feel confident saying that our scripting, this is why when you go into ground force, even when we're struggling, even when our headcount's lower than some other places right now, you still see CPA soar above these other places because our ability to handle objections is the most important thing that we do. The second thing is you got to have the right sales staff. A lot of renewable Andersons in other companies as well. I actually think other companies are way worse with this. Well, I know they are. They struggle because their sales staff is unwilling to run appointments that are not preset sales, where our sales staff is perfectly willing to run appointments that are not preset sales. They understand the difference between our job and their job. Our job is to schedule the appointments, to set the leads. It's not to sell the appointments. Right? And I think, again, well, I know based on working with a lot of different staffs, that is a fundamental difference between us and other renewable Andersons. So while we might get frustrated by an individual note that a sales rep puts on a lead or something like that, we might not like an individual lead result. I guarantee you that half your appointments, if they were with another company, just would get canceled out. They would say, well, what do you mean? They're not bad appointments. No, I know they're not bad appointments. I wouldn't have you set them if they were bad appointments. 1 second, I'm just changing the weather in here because it's too hot. I do got to remember to change that back, though. I don't think they're going to be very happy with me for turning on the AC in the middle of winter time, but especially if I leave it like that. So again, that's the biggest failure for companies to recognize is what's an appointment versus what's a sale, right? What are we responsible for? So I'll give you an example. I won't say the name of the company, but there's a company out there that pays. They pay a lot per demo. They pay a lot per demo, but before they run a demo, they don't say this to their employees. I interviewed their manager. Okay, he wanted to change jobs, and to be fair, I interviewed their manager, and I wouldn't even hire him for a team lead role. Their general manager of canvassing or whatever they called themselves, VP of canvassing or whatever. And because I thought that his experience tainted his ability to do the job, I wasn't impressed at all. But he told me straight up, they tell people to schedule the appointments, then they run them through a credit check. They check their home value, which is normal, but they run them through a credit check, which is not normal. And if their credit doesn't line up with it, then they cancel out the appointment without ever letting the canvasser see the lead or anything like that. It just goes in as a cancellation, not interested, and they cancel out the appointment before they ever go out to the home. He also told me that when they call to confirm the appointments, the reason why they don't confirm at the door, they have them schedule the appointments, and then they call to confirm outside of that because they'll ask them questions about their finances and whether or not they have a job. So it's fair if somebody says to you, right, or a call center employee, hey, I don't have a job right now, I'm unemployed. Well, then it's fair to say, hey, are you really in the financial position to do this? Then what about who you live with? They have a job right now. That's fair. But they're asking the customers, hey, are you employed? Hey, I see you have a credit score of 500. Is there anybody else that can co-sign for a loan? Stuff like that. And then cancel out the appointments without ever saying anything to the canvasser as to why they did that. That's not fair. That shouldn't be legal, even. But it's done. It's done all the time. I guarantee you there's more places out there that do that than don't. Guarantee it. I've been in this business for 17 years. I've seen it over and over and over again. If there's plenty of places where some of us, including myself, could probably go and make more money, theoretically. The question is whether or not we could build a career and how sustainable that is and for how long. There's plenty of quick income schemes or whatever. I was explaining this to one of our guys that did solar the other day. I'm like, for you because solar's dead now. Solar's dead. It's all the regulations and whatnot have changed. It's dead. So I said, hey, yeah, a couple of years ago, it was great for you to go into something like that because you're 20. You weren't thinking, career path. But for someone like myself, I need to think about a career path. I need to think about putting myself one place, not starting over again after a year or two, right? The benefit of this company is the sustainability of it in the sustainability of our metrics and numbers is based on how we handle customer objections. Okay. So the first question I had yesterday from somebody was about customers saying no right away. Okay. And that I get that question a lot, but I've gotten it a lot more lately. Who do I get that question from? I'll tell you what, I never hear that question from canvassers that have been doing this for a long time. I never get that question from canvassers that have been scheduling a lot of appointments for even a little while. And the reason why is because they found their way around that objection. It's not because it doesn't happen. It's not because it doesn't happen. It's because they have found a way to make it so that's not a major factor in their day. So I'll speak for myself, for example. On any given day that I go out there and canvass, and I'll use the last time I canvassed as an example in St. Louis. Okay, St. Louis can be a rough spot to canvass. A lot of people don't answer the door, no doubt, because they're afraid of the crime rates. How do I know that? Well, because we're in a neighborhood where there was cars home at every single house, but half of them wouldn't answer the door, and you could tell they're looking through the Ring doorbell. That's fine. That's fine. We still set plenty of appointments. It doesn't mean you can't schedule appointments. It just means it might be a little bit tougher to get those appointments out. There's nothing you can do about someone not answering the door. Okay, now in this case, there actually was, because as we were knocking, I realized, hey, the people in St. Louis, and here's the thing. When I started, doorbells, I sound old as shit right now when I say this. Doorbells really weren't a thing, guys. Like, I know that doorbells are old. That's not what I mean. They're obviously a thing. But doorbells in the traditional sense were not a thing. Ring doorbells didn't exist, but doorbells largely would break after a couple of years and customers wouldn't replace them. And you're just knocking on the door. Some neighborhoods would have doorbells, newer houses would have doorbells. Some of them would have those little paste on ones that are terrible. But I can't tell you how many times I went up to a 60-year-old doorbell and pressed it and just it shattered into pieces because the plastic was so worn down. The vinyl, by the way, was so worn down that it just broke into pieces. It's funny to think about that, but now doorbells are a thing. And when people are going out there canvassing, I see two things that I don't like very often. One of those things is ringing the doorbell and not knocking on the door, or knocking on the door and not ringing the doorbell. Okay. You want to do both things. But the second thing that I see is people ring, knock. They go ding dong. That you don't want to do that either. That's annoying. That's annoying. I'm telling you, be a customer, buy a house, and have a motherfucker. You invested in a doorbell for a reason. Have a motherfucker ding dong. That's annoying. Okay. So the appropriate thing to do, guys, is to ring the doorbell first. They invested in the doorbell for a reason. Now, understand this idea of not ringing ring doorbells first. You know what? I mean, fine. Okay. I would be irritated with you because I invested in that ring doorbell for a reason. Use it. I want to answer the door, but I've also heard people say, oh, well, yeah, but because a lot of times when you just knock, they don't, here's the thing. They just come to the door. They don't want to deal with it. Yeah, that's the same either way. I think the same people, if you ring it, are just answering the door because they don't feel threatened. And they're like, okay, who's that? They go to answer the door anyways. I don't think that there's a sizable amount of people that, keep in mind, ring doorbell is motion based, right? It's motion triggered. So they know you're there. If you knock on the door, they can just pull up the camera and deal with you through the ring doorbell anyways. So you might go, well, yeah, but that's not typically what they do. Typically, they will they'll just come to the door if I ring the ring doorbell. Yeah, but that might be if I don't ring the ring doorbell. That might be the same way either way. So I would try to ring the doorbell first. Wait 10 seconds. That's it. Not even 3 seconds. And then knock. And when you knock, you got to knock loudly. This might sound normal to you guys. I spent the time out in St. Louis, and a lot of people were knocking like this. You probably can't even hear that, but it was very, very light. Okay, very, very light. If I had a house that was more than 30 square feet, I don't think like if I was in a closet, I might hear it. Okay, maybe not even. Okay, so if you want the people to answer, they have to hear you. They have to hear you, right? If they're in the back of the kitchen making pancakes, you know, the grill or the whatever stove is sizzling, the bacon's cooking, they're not hearing you go. If they're listening to, you know, Maury Povich or Judge Judy or whatever, her voice, then they're not hearing. So give it a good distinguished knock. And I always say knock friendly. And you'll get some people that will go, oh, okay, you do that knock. You do that knock, you know? But most people, come out with a smile because it's not something they hear every day. But if you want to change it up, we got a lot of people from the 90s that are buying houses now. Oh, I did that wrong. Nickelodeon, right? You come up with different beats, you come up with different tunes, that's fine. All right, do something really obscure. If you're like a beatboxer, then go ahead, do your thing, right? But do something different to get them to answer the door with a smile. Okay. You want that wall down. Whatever you do, just don't knock for a long time. I've seen people like that. That's like ridiculous. It's annoying. You know what I mean? Just think about what you're doing and how it's going to be perceived. Customer comes out. You want them to be happy to speak with you. You want their initial reaction. So be smiling, standing up straight. There's 8 rules I have before I walk up to a door, as I walk up to a door. The first one is walk like you're motivated. Don't walk like an asshole through their neighborhood. So let me take my shoes off here real quick, actually. So I just keep a good pace. I know I'm pacing literally. Keep a good pace. You're not going to run across the neighborhood, but keep a good pace, guys. It's like you see these punks walk around the neighborhood. I've seen it before with canvassers in my neighborhood, some from our company, where they're staring at their phone or their iPad, looking at the houses, pretending like they don't know where they are. Okay. And and I go, what's this person doing? What are they? They look like a creep. You know what I mean? Look like you're motivated, like you have a place to go. Second, wave to all traffic. Everyone driving by, unless you're on a main road, because you're not gonna like a pageant, like just keep your hand up. But if you're in a neighborhood, when someone drives by, make it a point to wave to them, like you know them. Hey, you know what I mean? Like even say the words, right? Someone's walking their dog, or their dog. They're walking their job, walking their dog. Hey, just give them a friendly, hey, I'm here. You know what I mean? If they're walking their dog or they're out in their yard, change the route that you're going for a second in your map. You see someone across the street getting out of their car, go, hey, excuse me, are you Mrs. Jones, right? You're looking up the house at that time. Take the time to go talk to them before you continue on. Don't just ignore them and keep going. Because if you ignore them and keep going, trust me, when you come back around, they're less likely to answer the door. You don't say anything to them and you look like a creep, they're more likely to call the police. So acknowledge their existence at the very least. They're wondering what you're doing there. Make the contact with them. That's your chance to get that appointment. Even if somebody else is working the other side of your map, that's a one chance. It's a one time where it's appropriate to knock over somebody else's stuff because the customer's outside. Go talk to them. you leave a good impression, result the house. My third thing is wave at the house as you're approaching it. That might sound weird. A lot of customers will look out the window and they'll see you. You're looking at the windows as you're walking up. Don't make it creepy. Just you're looking at the windows. You're not casing the joint out. Make sure it doesn't seem like you are. Pay attention to the windows. Don't be all weird looking up in the windows and stuff like that. Just pay attention to them. And I just give a quick wave just in case the person's looking out the window at me. I want to make sure that I wave to that person. I'm acknowledging them. And by the way, if they think that you saw them, they're answering the door. They're answering the door. Finally, when I get to the door, I'm going to give my friendly knock, right, nice and loud. I'm going to knock loudly. When the person answers the door, I'm going to say, how you doing? But I say it before they can even answer. As they're opening the door, hey, Mr. Jones, how you doing? Right? Because I don't want to say, good afternoon, my name is Paul Duffy, how are you? You don't want to ever do that. You're killing your appointment. Good afternoon, my name is Paul Duffy with Renewal by Andersen. You, Mr. Jones? Okay, how are you today? Not good. Okay, it's not good. The reason why it's not good is A, not interested. Not interested. You're wondering why you're getting so many not interested quickly. It's because you're asking people how they're doing. That's the reason why, probably, right? Stop asking people how they're doing in a serious way. Think about somebody answering the door, right? Okay, they're going to answer the door. Hey, Mr. Jones, how you doing? They don't feel the need to answer, or they're just like, yeah, okay, hey, good. How are you? Who are you? Fine. Great, fine. Right? They haven't even had a chance to read my nerdy, scared character that is afraid to approach people in situations that's crouched over. In Rocko's Modern Life, they did one better by making that person a turtle. He's constantly crouched over because of his shell, and he can hide in his shell, which is exactly what you're doing when you have bad posture at a door. So keep your back straight, right? You don't gonna get all weird about it. Don't be like, just keep your back straight. All right. Good posture goes a long way. Don't be creepy with eye contact. I don't even keep eye contact in most conversations. And I make sure when I'm telling somebody something they need to know that I hold eye contact for that moment. Right? I'm not going to gaze in a customer's eyes like, hey, I'm with Renewal by Andersen. That's a different level of creepy. Okay. Different kind of creepy. But what I will do is make sure that there's honest eye contact that I'm having with that person. I always give an example. I remember my friend when I was growing up, he's a teenager. He was not a very loyal guy, and he dated around a lot, and he had this girlfriend that, I mean, the dude could go out and do anything, and she it could be right in front of her face, and she would go, look me in the eyes and tell me you didn't do that. And he'd go, okay, I didn't do it, and it's like, that's it. That's all you need, really. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy when you think about it. Imagine if they ran court like that. Okay, fine. You didn't rob that bank. Look me in the eyes and tell me you didn't rob that bank. You didn't rob the bank. You know what I mean? It's but people associated with trust. They definitely associate it with distrust, right? So eye contact is important. And in the next one, the last one, voice inflection. Voice inflection is super important. Your voice has to carry through the conversation. You don't got to yell at people, but they should hear you. This is the way that I speak to customers, the way I'm speaking right now. This is the way that I speak to customers. Good afternoon. My name is Paul Duffy. Mr. Jones? Great, Mr. Jones. I'm with Renewal by Andersen. We just did some work for Mrs. Smith right down on 123 Main Street. My mission is to be told at least twice a day, shh, you're going to wake the baby. Right? My voice inflection has to carry. There's a trust associated with that, and they will not interrupt you if they feel like they cannot interrupt you. Now, what this requires, though, is you go through the conversation. You can't speak over the customer. It's very, very easy when you're carrying your voice tone like that and you feel like you're domineering a conversation to speak over a customer. that customer starts to speak, I don't care if they're interrupting me mid-sentence. I'm immediately quiet. That's it. And I wait till they are completely done talking, plus 1 or 2 seconds. I'll nod my head twice, okay? And then I'll start speaking. So, well, Mr. Jones, does that sound helpful? No, look, right now I'm just not really interested. I just don't think I have the money set aside for this. I nod my head twice. There's a chance that they go, look, I mean, like, I know I need windows, right? But just not right now. Boom, they just set me up for success, right? I don't want to cut them off before they set me up for success. So just 2 head nods I give, and then I'll start speaking. It's just a social cue to myself that that's time to start again, okay? Because I used to struggle with interrupting people, customers, in conversation. Debate is a beautiful form of exercise for this job. We don't do it anymore because it's not exactly HR, proper to have political debates, for example, in the office. I think good structured debates fun and a good thing to do, but it's not for office time. We used to, the part of my training used to be, okay, you pick a topic, you pick a side. I don't care what it is. I will play the other side. You want to be pro-life, you want to be pro-choice, you want to be pro-marijuana legalization, against it. I will pick the other side. It doesn't matter. You go ahead and pick whatever side you want. I'll pick the other side. I'll push the other side. If it's something I know nothing about, give me 5 minutes. That's it. 5 minutes, and then I'll look it up. Boom, done. Because it's all about how you have the conversation. Now, when it was a view that I excelled with, I did even better. But it's all about how you have the conversation. The benefit that you have in these conversations, the benefit that you have in a scripted conversation like this is you already have all the information. They do not. If I was to ask you guys, okay, who's a football fan here? Give me the first person that says that they are a football fan, like a big football fan. Somebody, anybody?
Not no more.
Okay, fair enough. Who knows a fair bit about football?
I know a lot about it, but not.
Okay, well, that's
as
fine.
of recently, I stopped caring.
That's fair enough. But so humor me, okay? What is the best football franchise of all time?
I mean, either way, I'm still going to say Raiders just because I'm a Raiders fan.
Okay, but so here's the thing. If someone says something like that, you can fundamentally dispel it by just saying, well, obviously they are not. Convince me that they are the best football team of all time. It's just not fact based. I understand that they're your favorite team, right? But they're not the best team of all time. Okay. That's like if Wyatt said the Ravens were the best team of all time, for example. They're just fundamentally not, right? Pause for a second, though. So, and I don't, again, there's different forms of debate here, right? So I'm going to explain the structure of this conversation just so it makes sense to you. So someone said the Jets to me one time. All I would say is someone says the Jets, the Raiders, the Ravens. Okay, why? Because nobody can explain that. In they could say it's their favorite. Nobody can explain that. But let's say you think about this. I'll play both sides of this real quick. So let's say that I say to somebody, "What's the best football franchise of all time?" Right? Well, there's a couple things they can do. I know what the person is going to say. Either they're going to say something completely off the wall, okay, which is easy to dispel in a question or two, or they're going to say, what defines the best? Or they're going to define the best as something themselves, right? And we'll have to come up with a definition. I'll say either winning percentage would be, I would say a number of different things. Winning percentage is one thing. I think Super Bowl is the ultimate goal of an NFL team. So that's probably a pretty big thing. Stuff like that. So that narrows it down to a couple answers. Typically what you'll hear the Steelers, the Patriots, the Niners, and there's one or two other Cowboys because America's team, that whole thing. You'll hear stuff like that. No matter what that person says, I'm going to say, okay, why? typically they'll say, well, Super Bowls. Or they'll say winning percentage or their history. And I'll say, okay, fair enough. Then why not the Green Bay Packers? And they'll go, well, what do you mean? They only have 2 Super Bowls, or maybe they don't know that they only have 2 Super Bowls. And I'll say, yeah, well, they only have 2 Super Bowls, so they have 12 national championships. They have more national championships than any other team out there. So that said, if we're just talking about wins, I mean, it's prior to the NFL, is that, but it's wins. So they're either going to agree with me and say, yeah, the Packers, that makes sense, or they're going to say no. And they're going to say no because they'll say, well, yeah, but that was before the NFL. That was before the NFL, so there's a lot of differences back then. Fair enough. I agree with you. Okay. So what team then? Okay, well, the Steelers. Okay. So the Steelers have been around since 1933. Okay, the NFL was created in, I think, 1970, on or about that time. The Steelers have won, what is it, 6 Super Bowls since then? Yeah, 6 Super Bowls. 4 of those Super Bowls were won in the 70s. Okay. 2 were won more recently. So if you're going to discount the Green Bay Packers' 12 national championships, why wouldn't you discount the Steelers' 4 Super Bowls the same? What do you mean? Well, modern free agency started in 1993. Okay. So no player, they could keep all their players on their team pretty much with force when they won those 4 Super Bowls. Okay. There was almost no black players and no black quarterbacks of note at the time. Some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL are black now, including Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, so on and so forth. Okay. And there's a number of other different things too. So you name this, like, you could say, for example, the draft. The draft was even different back then. Back then, it was all about numbers placement. If you won the Super Bowl but you were 10-5, you might get the 15th overall pick. You know what I mean? Now it's about, if you win the Super Bowl, then you get the last pick of the draft. So my point is why wouldn't you discount the Steelers as well? Okay. Well, they can either disagree with that or agree with that. But if they disagree with that, then they have a problem, because how can they disagree with that but still not back the Packers? If they agree with that, then I'd say, okay, well, only one team has dominated modern American football and had 6 Super Bowls since free agency, since the draft has changed, since the league has allowed for more black quarterbacks and black players, which make up like 70% of the NFL. It's the New England Patriots. That's my answer. The point is this, is that you could agree or disagree. It doesn't matter. The point is that I'm asking the question, okay? I'm only giving if I had said from the start, the Patriots are the best football team of all time, argue with me about it, right? Debate me on it. They might have a bunch of different things they could say. I'm controlling the entire conversation from start to finish. I'm controlling what the best looks like. I'm controlling everything by working back the Packers thing, so on and so forth. Our pitch is the same way. Okay, our pitch is the same way. We're going to the customer's house. We already know what they're going to say. We know that they're going to say no, can't afford it, stuff like that. We already know that. Okay. We know our rebuttals. We know what kind of windows they have. We know jobs that we've done in the area. We already know all this stuff, right? So we're going to the door with a huge strength over the customer, knowing all that stuff. So understanding that, understanding your value and your strength is important. That's something that's a big deal when you think about it, what that means for what you're doing, right? It's a big deal. Does that make sense? So let's utilize that the proper way. One second, I'm just grabbing a cup from right down the end of the table here. All right. So I'm going up to the door, and I already know the customer's probably going to object right in the beginning if I give them an opening to object. They can take an opening to object, but the people that are getting no's right away constantly to where it feels like they can't even do their job, those people are giving the customer the objection right away. They're giving them the ability to object right away because you should get through to your value of the visit 85% of the time. That's right. You should get down to, at the very least, the question, does that, or I have your last name as Jones, what's your first? 85% of the time, right here. You might go, that's a lot of percentage. That's a lot. It is. It is. But you have to power through the beginning part of the script. And you're going to run into a couple different things. It's not just one thing. You're going to run into a couple different things. Okay, first, again, if you're asking things like, how are you doing? How are you today? Stuff like that, then you're going to lose in the beginning of that pitch. If you're asking questions like yes or no questions about the window problems, you're going to get no's right away in your pitch. That's why we designed the question, how long have you lived in your home? Will you get objections there? Yes, you will. But the customer doesn't know what to object to yet. Do you know what a lot of companies say right there? A lot of Renewal by Andersons, they say, I would like to get you a price. That's going to give you a no, right? You're putting all the cards on the table right there. I don't even care about getting them a price. That's secondary to me. I need to complete that in order to get paid, but that's secondary to me. Getting them the proper information that they need to do the right thing for their home, that's what I care about. Okay? That's what I care about. So, knock, knock, knock. Good afternoon. My name is Paul Duffy. I hope you're Mr. Jones. And now, again, guys, this stuff can adapt, right? So I'm saying to that customer, again, as they open the door, hey, good afternoon, Mr. Jones. How you doing? Right? Something like that. Before they even get, like, oh, you just said how you doing right in the beginning. Yes, they haven't even looked at me yet. They're shuffling the dogs. They're opening the door. They're not going to answer back with, I'm not interested, typically, because they haven't had time to process anything. For all I know, for all they know, I'm the delivery guy. I'm their child. They have no idea what's going on. Okay? That's why I'm asking that there. You don't have to, though, especially if you don't feel like you can control it. Okay? So, Mr. Jones, I'm from Renewal by Anderson. We just did some work for Mrs. Smith right down the street on 123 Main Street. And again, I try to give them an actual job that we've done, or a person that I've scheduled an appointment for. And I try to give them an address near them. That is, and Eli, I'll show you how to do this for the team too, to make sure that you can have that information for the team. But I try to give them an address on a road that they're going to know. Okay. I always use the example of my neighborhood. There's a street called Flamingo Drive. I didn't know that existed until I tried to look for a street in my neighborhood to make this example. Okay. No idea. I walked the neighborhood every day. I had no idea. Flamingo Drive. So if you said we just did a job on 137 Flamingo Drive, that means nothing to me, even though it's right next door. Fairway Drive is my street. Okay, fine, that makes sense. Lisburn Road and Williams Grove are major roads. If you did a job on Lisburn Road, okay, that makes sense. I know exactly where that is. I can picture it in my head right when you say it. It could be on a different part of Lisburn Road. I have no idea, but you say Lisburn Road, then that makes sense to me. Okay. If it's in Mechanicsburg, right? Marble Street. You might go, I don't know Marble Street. I live in Mechanicsburg. If you're driving anywhere in Mechanicsburg, like that's outside of Mechanicsburg, you got to take Marble Street or Main Street, but you're passing Marble Street in some way. It's a major road. So that's why I try to use that. So, Mr. Jones, we just completed some work on Lisburn Road. The reason I stopped is it looked like you had the original vinyl windows. How long have you lived in the home? Now, we know the script says, the reason I stopped is I noticed you're going to be replacing your windows soon, and I may be able to help. That is the safe route to go, okay? That is the average of what everyone is doing. What do I mean? Let's assume you didn't know what kind of windows they had. Let's assume you didn't know if they were replacement windows or not. Let's assume that You couldn't see anything. It's dark out. Okay. That is going to get the job done. The reason why I stopped is because I noticed you're going to be replacing your windows soon. Or I noticed you could be replacing windows soon, and I may be able to help. Okay. But for most of us, as soon as you get started in the job and you got through that initial first couple days, you're going to change this to what you see at the home. So I constantly will say, the reason I stopped is I noticed you had the original vinyl windows. The reason why I stopped is I noticed you had the original wood windows. The reason why I stopped is it looked like you had replaced your windows with vinyl windows. How long have you lived in the home? You could say, Miss Jones, the reason I stopped is I noticed fog and condensation in the front windows here at your home. How long have you lived in the home? Whatever you say, end on how long have you lived in the home? Okay. How long have you lived in the home? It's a great question because it accomplishes three separate things for us. Three separate things. First, it's extremely relevant to the windows. Okay. If they lived in their house for 6 months, well, now I get to congratulate them. They don't know anything about the windows. That's an easy set. Okay. If they say, oh, I've been here for 40 years, they probably know a little bit more about the windows. I probably have to have a little bit more of a conversation with them. And I have to remember these people have been marketed before. How do I need to approach this differently? Which we'll get to. Okay. How do I need to approach this differently? All right. Because again, think about that. I'm just going to write that down so I don't forget. Of course, I just put all this lotion on my hands and now I can't take the cap off the marker. There we go. That's funny. All right. So new owner versus, we'll call it old timer, old owner. Okay. Because there's strengths to both of these, but a lot of people struggle with people that have been in their house for a long time. Now, the reason why people struggle with that, because again, is think about it. They lived in that house for 30 years. That means we've probably knocked on their door before, several times even maybe. They've gotten a bunch of direct mail from us. They've probably seen a bunch of TV commercials, and they've never done windows with anybody. It wasn't a matter of price because they've never done windows with anybody. They've never done them with a cheap window company. They've never done them with an expensive window company. They've never done them with anybody. Okay. So a new homeowner is easy to set because they move into a house and it's just like when you buy a new car and you're young and you're like, man, what can I do to make this faster? It's the same thing. They buy a house and they go, okay, what do I need to do to update this? What do I need to do to fix this up? Now, a lot of them are house broke, so they will say, I can't buy anything. I don't want to buy anything. I can't afford anything right now. That's fine. You got to make it to them. To them, it's got to be about them getting information, make it almost a requirement. You're not lying to them. You're saying, Mr. Jones, I understand. Every person I talk to just about their house, they can't invest in new windows either. And I appreciate that, but you have to take a look. You have to get a quote. It wouldn't be the right thing for me to do to leave here today without you getting at least a look at your windows. And it's so important to your home's health and to your home's value. Let's just come out and take a look. What room do you spend the most time in? Separate the job. The second part that is, and I'll touch back on this after, but is the old timers, the people that have been in their house for a long time, 30, 40, 50 years. Keep in mind, I said this the other day, but they have been marketed on all of their windows forever. Okay. Every mailer that they get says buy 5, get 1 free. Whatever. Fill out how many windows you have in your home, right? Every picture that they see from a company is of a full house full of windows and a new door. They're going, oh man, I can't afford that. We got 26 windows here. We shouldn't have bought a house with so many windows. We got way too many windows here. They can't afford that. That's fair. That's fair. Our job is to make them understand that they don't need to do all of the windows. Oh, Mr. Jones, I appreciate you being honest with me. Okay. That said, people that have a lot of windows like this, they do not do all their windows at one time. I wouldn't even suggest looking at all the windows. What I would suggest is this. What room do you spend the most time in? Well, the living room and the bathroom. Okay. So it looks like there's probably, what, 4 windows between the two? All right. We'll just have somebody come out. They'll take some measurements. They'll leave you with some free information on just those 4 windows. That way you can call us back whenever you're ready. Does that sound helpful? Okay. I'm on a fixed income, Social Security. Oh, Mr. Jones. Okay. Well, I appreciate your honesty. All right. That said, our company, we're an American-made company. We understand American problems. We will find a way to make this work for you. But all I'm suggesting anyways is that somebody comes out to take a look. They check the windows for you. They leave you with some free information, and you give us a call back down the line whenever you're ready. We continue on in the pitch. We go through the window problems. All right. Before we even get to that, let's do this. Okay, we're going to pause for a second. I'm going to ask you guys, how many of you feel like you are getting objections right away that are tough to get over, and that you're getting stopped before you get anywhere at all in your pitch? I've heard at least 2 of you have told me that that's the case. So, okay, one. Who else? I know one other person at least has told me that they have it. So, at least 2. I would venture a lot more feel that way. So we'll cover it then. All right. And tell me if this is helpful or this is something that that you think would work for you. So when you're getting objections right away, there's all the stuff that I already talked about, right? Making sure that you look proper, making sure that you look friendly. If you look like you're gonna die, of like you're upset, like you're sad, people are gonna respond negatively to that most of the time. They're gonna go, this person's unhappy. I don't want to deal with this person, and they're subconscious. They're gonna reject you. Okay. If you get past that, you get into the conversation. It's about control. So for you, Eli, yesterday we did that script test, and the reason why you're losing control is because you were never taught the script. You started in a time before we had the scripting system in that area, and the person that was supposed to train you never did your training, right? They did not do your training. So you guys, you and Brooke have been working together for a while, and I appreciate the work that you've done together. But I think one of the biggest missing pieces is that no one has ever sat down and gone through the system the way that we're going through it now, the way that we went through it the other day with you guys. And no one has ever addressed these issues that can come up. So the first thing, I would eliminate any how you doing, how's it going, anything like that. And I would also eliminate any personal connections that are not extremely unique one-offs with the customer. I'll give you an example of a unique one-off. Guy comes out one time and he says, no, I can't do this right now. I'm cooking. And I said, okay, sir, appreciate honesty. Before I go, I see in all these houses, there's these little things on the sides of the doors. I know it's a Jewish thing, but what is that? I have to ask. He says, oh, that's a mezuzah. It holds basically your 10 commandments, but up there, this and that, whatever, it's for protection, something like that. I said, okay, cool. I said, I appreciate that. Sir, have you ever been to Israel? And this was obviously before like conflicts and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, I go every year. It's a great place. I'm like, yeah, I've always wanted to go. Guy told me he had dinner on the stove, keep in mind. 20 minutes goes by. 20 minutes goes by. His wife gets home. He says to his wife, and I'm wondering about this dinner. He goes, hey, honey, dinner's in the crock pot. It's almost done. Dude was lying to me, right? He was lying to me. He wasn't lying, though. Maybe he didn't say the stove. Maybe he just said, no, I have dinner on right now. But it was in a crock pot. My point is that a lot of times customers will say whatever to get you out of there. You have to get over that. That was a one-off. I didn't expect him to talk for 20 minutes about going to Israel and all this stuff. I just didn't expect that. But the answer to a lot of your problems with objections in the beginning, getting objections right in the beginning, is to try to avoid the objections by maintaining control of the conversation right from the jump. But if you do get an objection, do not treat it as an objection about windows. So, customer says, I'm not interested in the beginning. Way too many people will go, well, I didn't expect to catch you on the day that you're ready to replace your windows, right? Or, okay, well, before I go, sir, it's a completely free quote. It's good for you. Something like that. A lot of people will go to what I would consider last ditch effort rebuttals that aren't going to get you anything. The only thing they're going to do is make you feel like you're doing the right thing, right? That's what most people do. So again, I go, good afternoon. My name is Paul Duffy. I hope you're Mr. Jones. Hi, Mr. Jones. I'm with Renewal by Anderson. We just did some work. No, I'm going to cut you off there. I'm not interested. Most people are saying something like, well, sir, it's just a completely free quote. I noticed that you had older windows here, and they're just talking. That stuff never works. Never. So instead of winning at 10 or 20% of those houses, you're losing at 100% of those houses, right? That's not the position that you want to be in. The proper way to answer that, again, good afternoon. My name is Paul Duffy. I hope you're Mr. Jones. Hi, Mr. Jones. I'm from Renewal by Anderson. We just did some work, but no, I'm going to stop you there. I'm not interested in windows. I'm going to say to that customer, okay, sir. Well, again, I appreciate your honesty. That's not why I'm here. I'll just explain to you why I'm here then. And then I'll go right towards the window problems. I noticed that you had the original vinyl windows. Now, how long have you lived in the home? Now, you're running a risk. If you ask the question, how long have you lived in the home? You're running a risk there, even just asking that. Because they might just say, no, I said I'm not interested. Okay. So you might even ignore that. How long have you lived in the home for that part and just move on to the window problems. But either way, move through the scripting. If let's say the customer, I say, how long have you lived in the home? The customer goes, yeah, man, like I told you, we're not interested right now. I'm going to say, okay, sir. And again, like I told you, that's not why I'm here. I'll cut to the chase. We were just finishing up a job for Mr. Smith. So we popped by because you have the same original vinyl windows. That said, windows in this neighborhood have been experiencing extreme drafts, hot and cold spots. I saw some fog and condensation in the one window here. So I'd like to make a suggestion for you. Now, that person might say no to, may I make a suggestion or whatever, but keep in mind, I'm now worlds further than I would have been if I gave him some bullshit rebuttal right in the beginning of the pitch, a pre-written rebuttal that makes sense, but does not make sense for that spot. Okay. So if you control the conversation, even at that point there, I say, I'd like to make a suggestion. If he says, no, I'm not doing windows right now, I've been clear with that. I'm going to say, yeah, you have been clear, sir. And again, I really do appreciate the honesty. I wouldn't want to put you in any position where you felt like you had to get windows. All I would like to do is suggest that we have somebody come out to take a look at your windows, see if we can help you, check them out for you, and leave you with a free quote. That way you have the information set aside. Okay. Or I could say, no, sir, and you've been extremely clear with that, and I appreciate that. I wouldn't want to put you in a position where you feel like you have to get new windows. That said, all I want to do, or all I would do, is have somebody come out and check that one window for you, because it is failing. It's a failing window, and they'll leave you with some free information about it, and you can give us a call back if you ever decide that you're ready. Okay. But do you see how I'm controlling the conversation there with the customer? I'm not just going for some rebuttal, knowing I'm going to fail, and then getting told no again and then walking away. What's happening far too much, I would reckon all the time, especially in Southwest Missouri and Memphis, but increasingly in Central Pennsylvania, when we've seen less people do well now, this time of year, because of the cold and stuff like that, people will say no right away quite a bit, quite a bit. And if you're not pushing yourself through this part, then you're going to lose very, very often in the beginning of that pitch. But if you do what I'm talking about, you maintain control of the conversation and you do it in a friendly, kind way. Again, my voice tone and voice inflection is going to tell the customer basically, I mean business. They're going to respect that. And I'll tell you what, they might say no, but people are going to be a lot more kind to you. They're going to be a lot more, they're going to feel like they have to be, you know? It's a level of intimidation and respect that exists. You're not intimidating anybody, but you're just speaking very, very clearly, very pointed. You know what I mean? And again, it's not that nobody freaks out, and you might have somebody say, I said, get the fuck off my property. But that's fine. It's going to happen. Okay. It's about how you control the situation. If I at least feel like I've done everything I can do, then it makes it easy for me to walk away with a decent feeling behind what I'm saying. All right, so initial resistance, guys, is a big part of success versus failure. You know, we if we can't get past the beginning, then how can we ever get to, you know, to completion? We can't say, you know, we can't it was against Canadians, by the way, too. It was my mother's from Canada. So a lot of people don't know that. My mother's from Canada. So we can't, if we can't get past initial objections. Again, so just if you're just joining us, by the way, too, we've gone through goals for 2026. We've gone through some philosophy when it comes to scripting and why we do what we do. We've gone through how to present ourselves at the door and the 8 steps to kind of succeed before you even hit the house. We've gone through overcoming initial customer rejection. And now we're going to dive into objections in general and resistance to appointments in general, and how to get over that. So, this, you can't control where a customer is going to say no. So you have a level of control over it. The idea used to be that you couldn't control it at all. And the idea actually used to be, like when I first started, you want to actively avoid customer objections sort of out of fear. So it was like, hey, let's avoid the customer saying no out of fear that it's going to change how we pitch and it's going to change how we view the appointment. I think it's the opposite. To be honest with you, I think that if a customer is going to say no, let them say no. Like how you handle that objection, they're going to say no regardless. It's just whether or not they're going to say no to you, or they're going to say no to somebody in the call center, or to the sales rep right when they show up at the door before you get anything done at that house, right? So they're going to say no. It's just about how they're going to say no, when they're going to say no. You have more control over it at the door. So for me, I would prefer to have the resistance at the door where I have a level of control than have the resistance, later on in the pitch when I have no control. Okay, so later on in the appointment, like when I don't have control over it. So when we ask questions like there's natural break points to this. Parts where we are asking the customer to interject and say something. Now, when I first started, again, like I said, the philosophy was different. The scripting was different too because of that philosophy. So when I first started, the scripting actually made you avoid any customer, like the customer saying anything. It actually promoted the customer saying nothing and you just pitching them through. And I'll kind of give you an example of what that was. So the way that it worked when I first started was you knock on the door, and everything that we did back then was completely feature and benefit related. It was not, we didn't think at all about or use anything to do with window problems. I didn't even know that vinyl windows were bad for the first, probably a year and a half, 2 years that I was with the company. Until I moved down to Philadelphia, I thought vinyl windows were good windows. When I moved down to Philadelphia, I remember driving into Westchester and going, oh man, there's way too many vinyl windows around here. This is going to be hard. And the guy who I was working for at the time, the marketing manager, was like, what are you talking about, dude? Vinyl windows are the worst. And I had to have him train me. This is after being a canvasser for a year and a half. I had to have him train me on vinyl windows because I got zero training on window problems when I first started. The only training was a little bit of training on features and benefits. That's it. So I'm going to tell you a couple things now. Features and benefits don't matter at all. If anyone's ever taught you that you should try to sell the customer on our windows quality or whatever, largely not true. Sure, if it's brought up, or if you get to a point in the pitch where the customer's like, yeah, no, I kind of want a cheaper window, then no, bring up the stuff that makes our windows great, for sure. But in the beginning of an appointment, just generally when you're speaking to a customer, you want to focus more on the problems that they're having with their windows and sometimes solutions to those, and less on features and benefits of our windows. Okay. They know Andersen's a good quality name 9 times out of 10, more than that. It's not about selling them on the quality of the window. It's about selling them on their need, in their immediate need, on their need, not just for windows, but for an appointment to get a quote on their windows. We don't need them to know that they need windows. We don't need them to feel that. We need them to commit to having a need to have those windows checked out, looked at, whatever. That's what we need, right? So let's talk about that for a second. So we get through, I asked the question, how long have you lived in the home? And again, there's 3 reasons why I'm asking that question, okay? I didn't go over those. The 3 reasons why. First is it's a relevant question for the windows and for the customer, okay? If they just moved in, they're probably going to know a lot less about the windows than if they've been there for 30 years, right? So that changes the way that I have that conversation. It makes it slightly different, okay? Second is, so I just realized that it was my anniversary with Central PA today because I got a thing from an app. We have a social media app, here that we'll eventually get with all the companies. That is really, it's great. It's called Work Vivo, and eventually we'll have it everywhere. But it really keeps you in tune with stuff that goes on within the company and stuff like that. If you're in Central PA, then I would definitely, I would make sure that it's downloaded and that you utilize it. In the other offices, we'll have it again very soon. I got to work on loading mine, but it does things like it will update you when it's your anniversary, when it's other people's anniversaries with the company. So side note, but download that if you're in Central PA. If you're not, then just look forward to that soon. Okay, so the second reason why this is important is because it's a great personal connection maker, a natural personal connection maker. So let's say that I say, how long have you lived in the home? The customer says, I've been there for 30 years. Wow. So you made a lot of changes on this house, Mr. Jones. Then. Great. So this porch, I'm guessing that you put this here, right? Okay, cool. Was the pool here when you moved in? It looks beautiful. You just get the driveway done, then I see. And there's so many personal connections that you can make with that customer. Let's say they just moved in. The best personal connections. Congratulations. That's great. Did you move from the area? Is this your first house? There's a lot of questions you can use to make a personal connection based on this. And finally, you get a gauge on the customer right from the beginning from a safe spot. Okay. So if the customer hasn't said no yet, but you can feel the tension, they go, yeah, 5 years. Why? What do you need? Okay. What do you want? Yep. I've been here for 5 years. What do you want? Well, then you're going to have to get pretty straight to the point with that customer. And But if they say, oh yeah, no, I've been here for 5 years. Yeah, it's a great neighborhood. Then again, you see the customer's attitude is different. Okay. So again, it gives you some visibility on how to move forward through asking that question. It will also allow for some objections. So it's the first time where the customer can say to you without interrupting you, yeah, no, I've been here for 5 years, but I'm not interested in windows. Yeah, I've been here for 30 years. I'm not interested in windows. But it's a safe spot to get an objection because think about where you're at. How long have you lived in the home? I've been here for a couple of years, but you know why? I'm really not doing windows anytime soon, so I'm good. Oh no, Mr. Jones, I appreciate your honesty. Okay, that said, I'm just here to talk about the job that we're doing in the area and some of the similarities in your windows. First, I wanted to point out that I saw this. Okay, that I saw that. Right now, the two stages to window problems. Right, there's actually three. It's observation, questions, and then observation. Okay, so there's three: observation, questions, and then again observation. Now, what do I mean by that? I want to start out by pointing out what I see in the windows. So I noticed warping on these two vinyl windows here. And the reason why I noticed that is this. Now, here's the thing. What people do too often is they die in the window problems because they're making the problems too long. They're being way too specific with the customer and they're diving into the science behind why their windows are shit. You don't want to dive into the science behind why their windows are shit. That's not going to benefit you in any way. Okay. Just tell them that what you see. So I noticed some warping here, sir, especially on the left side of the home. Now you can say light stuff like that happens because the sun beats on the plastic and starts to destroy the material. But what you don't want to do is go, well, you see, sir, when the sunlight hits, it starts to do this and that, and it will change the molecular composition. And you sound like an idiot. Okay. You sound like an idiot by trying to sound too smart. Okay. No, it's just very simple. Sun melts plastic. That's it. Right? Sun warps plastic. One of the most common problems that you'll see is glass impaction. Now we'll do a separate video on window problems. Maybe we'll have time to go through some of it today, but glass impaction is a very big problem in windows. It's when the reflection of the glass is wavy, okay, is wavy. It's not because it's wavy. Who cares if it's wavy? It's because why that's happening. The reason why that's happening in the large majority of cases, and I say the large majority because tempered windows give a similar effect. Tempered windows are hardened windows on usually the first floor, or I'm sorry, the second floor of the home. If they're lower to the ground, then there'll usually be town ordinances that say that you have to have tempered glass, which means it's stronger. And when it breaks in big pieces. It doesn't shatter. It can't hurt somebody as badly. So if, let's say, somebody was to fall out the window, then they're not going to get all cut up by the glass likely. And they're less likely to be able to break the glass, like kids and stuff like that. So, but if it's an older vinyl window, then chances are it's glass impaction. Glass impaction. So that's when the material warps and bends the glass. The other thing that causes that is a pressure change in the glass. The glass has a seal, which you all probably know, right? It's a double pane window. When the gas leaks out of the window, it gets replaced by oxygen, which isn't as big, I think is the way it's explained. Either way, that forces the windows together, forces them to the glass to move, to push, okay? And the windows can crack and break, and it signifies significant warping in the vinyl material. I don't gotta explain all that to a customer. I just gotta say, hey, I know there's some glass impaction here, which is the warping of your glass. That's happening because the windows themselves are pretty warped. That's going to lead to a lot of problems with energy efficiency. Would you say that you feel a draft in the home, or is it just the energy bill issue? No, neither. I don't feel a draft. The energy bills are fine. Okay. So you said you've been in the home for 5 years, right? The energy bills in this neighborhood are pretty high, Mr. Jones. That's why you see people replacing the windows. So you might not feel like your energy bill has gone up, and maybe it hasn't, but it's definitely way higher than it could be. Okay. But what I'll have somebody do, may I make a suggestion? what I'll have somebody do is come out, they'll take a look at your windows, they'll tell you which ones are giving you the biggest problems. They'll speak to you about this energy efficiency, and then they'll leave you with some free information so you can give us a call back whenever you're ready. Okay, so again, it's easy to transition into the value of the visit. Now, the next part where you're getting objections is that, may I make a suggestion? May I make a suggestion is probably the most important question in our entire pitch. Okay. May I make a suggestion? That should get you, when you get to that part, you know you're halfway there. Okay. But you got to ask it at every house. The reason why it's such an important question is because it gets a yes every single time. Okay. Now, it might be a yes, no, it might be a yes, but I'm not interested. Yes, but I can't afford this. Yes, but this. Yes, but that. That's fine. That's fine. Don't avoid that. Who cares? It's not a problem. Okay. A yes is a yes. You can use it to move on. It gives you choices. May I make a suggestion? Yes, you can, but I'm not interested right now. I can choose whether or not I want to just keep going or I want to address the no. Okay. So, may I make a suggestion? Yes, you can, but I'm not interested right now. Okay, Mr. Jones. Well, what I would suggest is, what's the problem with doing that? I don't have to entertain the bullshit, not interested. Okay. But let's say they say something genuine. Look, it sounds, you can make a suggestion. That said, I just got my roof done. I can't afford new windows right now. Oh, well, Mr. Jones, I appreciate your honesty. Yeah, I didn't realize that you just got the roof done. That's a big job and a very important one too. Maybe more important than the windows. That said, what I'll do instead is just have somebody come out and take a look at your windows. They'll check them for you, see what kind of problems you're having, and leave you with some free information. That way you have a plan for whenever you're already down the road. Does that sound helpful? Okay. So you see what I'm doing there. So may I make a suggestion? Yeah, you can, but I can't afford new windows right now because of this or because of that or whatever, or I'm not interested because of this. Oh, okay. Well, I appreciate you letting me know. So again, thank you for letting me know. I'm finding some level of agreement right there. Yeah, I would do the roof first too. That's a big job. Again, agreement there. I'm not opposing them. I'm agreeing with them. And then I'm spinning it. Okay. What I'll do instead, very important verbiage here. What I'll do instead. By the way, every person that I've taught that to that isn't sincerely using it has come back that day and said, holy shit, that worked for me. I wrote 2 leads, I wrote 4 leads, I wrote 5 leads with that. It works. It works. What I'll do instead is, okay, have somebody come out, just take a look at the windows. They'll check them for you. They'll leave you with a free price quote. You call us back whenever you're ready. Okay. So again, create agreement and then transition into the next part like that. Okay. So I'll tell you what I'll do instead. All right. Now, you might go, well, is that a little bit early to use that or whatever? No, you can repeat yourself, by the way. There's this thought out there that you can't repeat yourself. You can absolutely repeat yourself as long as you acknowledge that you're going to repeat yourself. Okay. If you don't acknowledge that you're going to repeat yourself, that's when you start to run into trouble. So the next question is, does that sound helpful? And I'm going through these pretty quickly. I'm going to use them in a couple examples. Does that sound helpful? You're going to get a lot of no's there. All right. So think about it for a second. A lot of you guys are losing in the introduction. It's beating you down to a point where you feel like there's no way I can do this job, or you feel like maybe it's just the houses I'm talking to, maybe it's the people, or you feel like I don't know how other people are getting through this pitch. And I'm telling you, this is how to do it, and you will get through 85% of the houses that you knock at. If you do this properly, 85% of the houses that you knock at. You're not going to book 85, but 85% of the people that you talk to, okay, you're going to book probably 30% or 50% of those, depending on how many people you talk to, okay? You'll book a sizable amount of those people that you get down to the value of the visit with. So does that sound helpful? Yeah, not right now. Like I said, I just had to do the roof over. That was a big expense. We're a couple years out on this. Okay, Mr. Jones. Well, again, like I said, I really appreciate you being honest with me. And I wouldn't want to put you in a tough position. That's definitely not what we want to do. That said, it's so much easier for us to pop out. We're already out here. The goal of the visit really is just to go over your options, answer your questions, and leave you with a quote that's good for 1 full year. And even if you don't call us back, this is key. Even if you don't call us back, Mr. Jones, you know whether or not we are the company for you when you do decide to get windows down the line. Now, I have your last name here as Jones. What's your first? Okay. You know whether or not we are the company for you when you do decide to get your windows replaced. Okay. It's gold. Trust me, it's gold. It eliminates the excuse. When you're dealing with objections, guys, you have to eliminate the excuse. You have to eliminate the objection, right? Oh, I just did my roof. I can't afford new windows right now. That makes total sense. Look, I would have done my roof first as well. So just to summarize this part that we're going through right now, and again, I know I'm losing energy and I feel bad almost because I'm like, fuck, we're on hour 3 now. Okay. It's a lot of talking. And I know it's a lot to listen to. And I hope that some of it's helpful, at least to some people. I know for a lot of you guys, this stuff is a refresher. You might have went through it in training, you might not have, but we have not done a good enough job of training on this stuff that I'm talking about right now. How do I know that? Because guys, if I promise you, if you use this stuff without fail, you're doing your thing the proper way, you will be at 7+ demos every single week. Every single week. You just got to use this stuff, use it consistently, use it properly, and you got to stop. You got to stop worrying about, like, so let's say you go to Monday or Friday, rather. Friday, you go out and you commit to using this stuff properly. Again, you can't not have the script down and the system down and try to use this stuff. You can't. The script is the foundation for all of it. It's the first step. It's the foundation. So you can try, and sure, you might do better than you've been doing, but the proper way to do this is to leave this training. When you leave this training, study your script. Go, okay, I am confident I got my script good 100%. And then to start using this stuff right away, you will be at 7+ demos every single week. If you're good at dealing with people and making personal connections, you'll be at 10 or 12+ demos every single week. You'll be maximizing your commission and you'll be in a much, much better place. Okay. And we'll go through some of the pitfalls of canvassing and whatnot after this. So let's summarize this part one more time. I'm going to open up to any questions. I'm going to go through some of the pitfalls and whatnot in canvassing. And then I'll go through some basics of window problems. And then we'll be done. Okay. So again, there's 3 questions here, really 4, I guess. There's 4 questions here. How long have you lived in your home? If you get an objection there, okay, which you might, but it's going to be an insincere objection at best, and not interested, whatever. You're going to have a lot of people shut the door at that part. That's the part that you're going to have people shut the door at, no matter what, okay? But not interested. All right, sir. Well, and again, all you're trying to do is gain more time, okay? So, how long have you lived in the home? A couple of years, but look, I'm not doing windows. I'm not interested right now. Oh no, of course not. And I appreciate you, talking to me and letting me know that. That said, the reason why I'm here is because it looked like you had the original vinyl windows. Like I said, now walking up, I noticed that there was this problem, that problem. How long have you, had this issue? And whatever the problems are, you have that conversation. Point out what you see first and ask questions based on that. And then at the end, summarize what you see. Now, let's say, for example, you're dying in the window problems. What I mean by that is that you say, hey, I noticed some fog in the glass up front here. How many windows do you have like that? None. They're fine. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate that they feel fine for you. I'm glad that they do. I can tell you with confidence so that your energy bills are very much higher than they need to be right now. And these windows, sir, by any metric are not fine. That being said, so you just take control there. So then if a customer goes, yeah, no, but I'm not having any, I know they're not great, but I'm not having any major problems with them. Well, and that's good. That's good, Mr. Jones. It's good that you're not feeling any major problems with them, because I'm sure eventually you will. And you see a lot of the neighbors getting the windows done because of this. That said, a lot of people have complained about these windows being hard to open and close or hard to lock securely. No, mine are fine. Don't die in the window problems. Don't just keep going back to window problems. Tell them what you see and then get out of that section. Okay. So again, well, like I said, sir, and I don't want to keep you. Okay. But I did notice condensation and fog in the front window here. These windows definitely lack energy efficiency. And one of the biggest complaints we've gotten about these windows in the neighborhood is that there's a security issue to them. They're not safe windows. They're not safe. They don't lock properly. They don't open and close properly, some of them. So they're definitely a safety concern. That said, may I make a suggestion? You got to power forward through that section. Sometimes it takes you taking control of the conversation and moving through the conversation properly. May I make a suggestion? They're always going to say yes here. Again, like 99% of the time, they're going to say yes, but I'm not doing it. Or they might just say yes. So in this case, again, they say, yes, but I can't afford new windows right now. Like I just did over some projects in the home. We have other projects that we have coming up. I can't afford new windows right now. Okay. Well, that makes sense, sir. It's great that you have a budget together for your home. That's really, really smart to do. A lot of people don't do that. That being said, all I would do then is have somebody come out, take a look at the windows, see how we can help you, and then leave you with some free information. So down the line, whenever windows are on the list, you can call us about those. Does that sound like it'd be helpful to you? Yeah, but not right now. Not right now. We'll give you a call when we're ready to do windows in a couple of years. There's no way that we're doing windows, in the next year at all. Okay. Well, sir, and I appreciate you being honest with me. Like I said, what I'll put down then, what I'll tell them to do instead is just go over your options, answer your questions, and automatically the quote's good for a full year. But then you know whether or not we're the company for you. I have your last name here is Jones. What's your first? Okay. What's key to all of this is at the end, you cannot skip this part. And I will tell you right now, in role playing and at the door, a lot of people are skipping this. Now I have your last name as Jones. What's your first? A lot of people are skipping the hard close because they feel uncomfortable with it. And I understand that. I understand it's uncomfortable just to lay it to the customer like that. I have your last name as Jones. What's your first? You're scared of the conflict. Okay. If you're that afraid of the conflict, you can add this line in. It is helpful with it. And to do that, sir, all I need is a little bit of information. I have your last name as Jones. What's your first? Okay. And to do that, sir, all I need is a little bit of information. I have your last name as Jones. What's your first? Okay. That said, it's not super, like, again, it's not dire to like, how do I put this? You shouldn't be afraid to just ask for the information. Okay. Another thing that you can do, it's not written in the script, but again, another thing that you can do is if you feel like, so on the does that sound helpful question? If you feel like the customer's not ready to say, yes, that's helpful. Okay. If you feel like that, like you might get an objection to, does that sound helpful? The other thing that you can do there is you can say, I'm sure that at least sounds helpful. Or does that at least sound helpful? What you're doing there, think about it, is you're cheapening the customer's evaluation of that appointment, which is fine. But you're cheapening the customer's evaluation of that appointment. All right. Now I'm sure that at least sounds helpful, right? Like this is not a big deal. I'm sure it at least sounds helpful, right? That's fine too. Is that going to be the best quality appointment? Sometimes not. No, but we'll talk about confirmation in a minute and getting the appointments to run in a minute. The biggest thing for you guys right now, most of you guys, is you're just going to write more leads. You know what I mean? If you get more leads on the book, then we can figure out what the cancellation rate problem is, why the cancellation rate problem exists. But we got to get the leads on the board first before we figure that out. Okay. All right. If any, what kind of questions do you guys have on this section? Overcoming objections. Is there any specific objection that you'd like to know how to overcome? Things that you've been running into a lot. Holiday things, not holiday things, weird shit, one-offs, whatever. Things that you don't know how to answer.
Hey, Paul.
Mhm.
So I'll be honest, the biggest thing I'm I noticed my guys have been kind of complaining about, as well as I noticed too when I was up in Troy. Um, like we're getting some of these squalls coming through and the winds coming through. Like just like yeah, that's good. Just not now. Shut the door.
Yeah.
So that's been uh an obstacle I've been trying to work with them, trying to overcome. So as much help would be appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah. So whenever you're digging into a problem like that, right? There's kind of a couple layers to it, right? The first thing is like, it's obviously not a permanent problem, which is good, thank God, right? Like that would be, it sucks. The wind sucks. You know what I mean? Um, and as a leader, you might decide, hey, because I know the wind's going to be coming, instead of going to a place like that today, we're going to go to a place like downtown Williamsport where there's more buildings, there's less of an issue with wind because of that. That's the first thing. That's the decision you have to make, right? I'm a believer that it works out anywhere you go. So as long as you prepare for it, then you're fine. But that might be something that you do in preparation is like have a backup neighborhood in case all of a sudden there's this because the wind has been kind of crazy. All of a sudden there's this wind that you have a backup plan, a place that you can go to that's maybe more flat, more trees, or more buildings. You know what I mean? Something that's going to block some of that wind. All right, now that's part of it. Okay, the second thing is what I said first about showing up to the door in the right way is really important, especially when you're going through that. There's sympathy leads that are not good, and there's sympathy leads that are fine. The sympathy leads of, oh my God, it's cold out, you're doing this job, come inside. Those are fine. Those are fine. Like, because they give you more opportunity to speak to the customer and to create a better appointment with the customer. That said, you want to be as presentable and clean cut as possible to get invited into as many houses as you can. You know, so that's the second element of it. All right. The third element of it, let me just you who just logged in. The third element of it would be the actual dealing with the objections. Okay. It's tough because a lot of times those customers are just closing the door after they're done. Okay. The best thing you can do is be prepared to ask for a second of their time immediately. Okay. Get a commitment from the customer to give you a time period, a very short time period, to talk with them. Okay. So, Mr. Jones, I know it's windy out. Before I go, if I could just grab a second from you, all right, you can stay right where you're at. All right. And it just immediately go into, you can feel the wind, Mr. Jones. I'm sure you can feel it in your home right now. It's pretty crazy out here. They have me out there talking to homeowners like you because your windows are much older and they definitely need some help. Right? And so again, it's going to create a little bit of sympathy naturally. Oh man, this guy's struggling to do his job, but you're getting right to the point. You're getting right to the point, and you're letting the customer know, I'm not going to waste your time. Just give me a minute. Okay, just give me a minute, and it will gain you more time. That's the best way I think to deal with something like that. Okay, now I would get because a lot of you guys probably go, well, that's exactly what I'm doing, and my challenge to them would be to look at it a little bit differently. I think most of them, even if they feel like they're doing that, they're doing some version of it, but they look like they're upset, like they're angry, like they don't feel great about what they're doing because the wind sucks so bad. You can't look like that. You want to just let the customer know that their home is really, really important to you. Okay. Even in a windstorm like this, we're still going to be there for you, Mr. Jones. Right. So that's the best thing to do in that situation. And again, I know it's not the perfect answer because you wish that there was rebuttals and answers to objections that just answer stuff like that. But the best thing to do is try to buy a small amount of time right in the beginning from the customer, if that makes sense. Okay. What other questions you guys have? Okay. All right. And so we're done the holidays, which is good. Okay. And now you're going to hear people say things like, no, I'll do it in the spring. Not right now. Nope, it's too cold out. Don't want to deal with it, whatever. We have a winter installation process that they want to do their windows in the spring straight up. They got to buy them now. They're not going to get the windows done in the spring if they want to buy, if they buy them in the spring. they're not going to get done. Okay, so that's something that. Now that said, most of the customers that are saying, "Oh no, I'll wait till the spring," are just trying to get you out of there anyways. So it's insincere from the jump. So I wouldn't necessarily just go right to, well, if you want windows in the spring, you got to buy windows now, because they don't want to buy windows at all. That's the objection that they're giving you. Okay. What I would say in a situation like that, when you run into a customer that says, no, maybe in the spring or maybe later on in the year, I would say, okay, great. That makes a lot of sense, Mr. Jones. I'll tell you what I'll do then. I'll have them come out now. They'll take a look at the windows. They'll leave you with a free price quote. Good for a year. You give us a call back in the spring whenever you're ready. I have your last name as Jones. What's your first? Okay. I have your last name as Jones. What's your first? You can turn a callback into a lead. Okay. You can turn a callback into a lead. The customer is willing to give you the information. You've gone through the motions already. That's a great way to do it. That's a great way to handle that kind of objection. We talked about a couple weeks ago resetting an appointment. Okay. This is something that is super, super important. When the appointment is dead, it's not completely dead. You got to reset that appointment. Okay. So I start my conversation out. I'm pitching a customer. They kill the appointment for some rhyme or reason, whatever. The best example I can give you is, me and Caleb over in St. Louis being at a house where the guy was like, no, I'm not spending any money on windows right now. The energy efficiency isn't that big of a deal to me. You could tell the guy bought the house because of the aesthetics. He said as much. It was an older home. It looked very, very nice, but it had cheap white plastic vinyls in the home. And I noticed it right away. It was extremely noticeable because all of the trim work was fresh painted, like artistic style stuff. It was blues and yellows and stuff like that. So I said to that customer, I said, okay, Mr. Jones, that makes sense. I'll tell you what though, sir, before I go, I would imagine you bought this house because of its look. It's a beautiful home. And the guy agrees. And I said, that said, Mr. Jones, I wouldn't look at all the windows right now. Okay. The front windows here, it's extremely noticeable, are cheap plastic windows. Your home deserves better, quite frankly. You deserve better. Okay. That said, we can recreate the exact older look of these wooden windows that you'd like a lot more for the home. Okay. And it's completely free, no obligation, so on and so forth. So again, you're changing why you're there. You're resetting the appointment. You were there to schedule the appointment for all their windows. Now you're breaking the job size to just the front windows, just the front couple. Okay. I'll give you another example. St. Louis. We're running into an issue. A person had already done some of the windows with a different company. They weren't into getting the windows done. They had a break-in recently. Well, man, before I go, I would not feel okay about myself if I didn't tell you about this. Okay, I know security is an issue in this neighborhood. We just came out with a new door. It's the most secure door that you could ever get. It's got a 3-point locking system, and it's all electronic. It's a beautiful door. It would fit perfect with your home. More importantly, it would keep you extremely safe. So let's not come out to look at windows. Man, let's not waste our time on that. All right, we're just going to come out and take a look at your front entry door, leave you with some free information. You give us a call back if you ever decide you're ready. That lady bought a $16,000 door. You know what I mean? It's resetting the appointment is another great thing you can do. Okay, so I want you to think about your job like this. When I'm doing this job, I want to gather as much information as possible. I want to get as many leads as possible, and I want to get as many callbacks as possible too. Callbacks have never been a focus for any of these other offices besides the Pennsylvania offices. And it's because the ISC hasn't specialized in setting these callbacks. The ISC in Central PA is now teaching the ISC in St. Louis their system and how they're calling these leads back. So those callbacks, about 20% of them will run. Okay, about 10% of them will run in the first month of their existence. Another 10% over the next 6 months. Okay, so I lost where I was at. I had a specific place I was going with that too, and that's again, we're at 3.5 hours right now. So that's where I'm at with it. Where I'm starting to forget stuff now. I'm like ready for a nap. Okay. So let's see. Resetting the appointment. What was the last thing that I said? Doors. resetting the appointment, specific windows. I'll just start here. I'll tell you that. I'll start here and then I'll go back to wherever I left off before. So the customer again, a lot of these customers, they think that they got to get their whole house of windows done. That's what they've been taught. And so focusing them in on a specific job, whether that be, one window, one door, 3 windows in the top of the house, whatever, resetting the appointment like that is going to give you a sizable amount of appointments, right? Going for a callback is not what you want to do, but there's a specific thing that you want to do here. Just go up there. You're not going for the whole house. Go up there naturally, do your job the way that you've been taught to do it. If you can't schedule, if the person's giving you an objection and you've done everything that you can do, move on to a specific job. Okay, sir. Well, before I go, I wouldn't feel okay with myself if I didn't at least mention most of your energy is being lost through this bay window right here. Okay, these 3 windows here, this bay window right here. Let's have somebody come out just to leave you some free information on that. It's good for an entire year. You can give us a call back when you're ready. Okay. I have your last name here as Jones. What's your first? All right. Move to whatever makes the most sense for the customer. Finally, the next thing is make sure you mention an entry door because a lot of people don't know that we sell entry doors. So make sure that you mention the new entry door. Lastly, before you go, okay, so now keep in mind the difference between what you're doing now and what I'm asking you to do. What you're doing now, guys, quite frankly, a lot of you, is you're going to the house, you're getting the shit kicked out of you in the introduction, and then you're leaving the house, going to the next one in a worse mood than the one that you were at, getting the shit kicked out of you again, right in the beginning of the quote, and then you're leaving the house, going to the next one, and you're doing this over and over again until 2-3 hours in, and then you might as well not even be knocking anymore because it's useless. You've ruined your day, right? What I'm asking you to do differently is to get through that initial objection, even if by force, move into the next part of the script, okay? And continue to do that. Make sure at every house you're getting out, I have your last name is Jones, what's your first, to the best of your ability, all right? Even if it's uncomfortable. After that, if the customer still objects, back up a little bit, not physically, but out of the appointment. All right, figure out what the customer needs are. Okay, so that makes sense. I can imagine too, doing the whole house would be a lot. I want to point out, sir, I believe that you're losing a lot of your energy savings through this one window, through these 2 windows. I know you did mention your 2 young children, Mr. Jones. I would imagine they only have probably 2 to 4 windows in their bedrooms. It's not worth it to have those windows be uncomfortable for them. It's not a good thing. So let's just focus in on that. All right. So make sure that you mention, you reset the appointment to fit whatever, makes sense. So, I gave you a couple examples, but let me give you another example. All right. Here's a great example. Go to this house, huge window in the center of the home. In that window, through it, you could see a staircase. It was big, right above the front door. You know those windows? You could see a staircase, and you could see that window had worn down so much there was condensation. And the guy was like, no, not doing any of my windows, not getting it done. All the windows were bad, by the way, too. He goes, I got 2 kids in college. I'm paying for their college. I can't afford new windows right now. And I was like, you know what, sir, that makes total sense. 2 kids in college is a lot. And I had done rebuttals, obviously. The guy says to me, I said, sir, I have to mention this window here is probably where you're losing a lot of your energy savings. And I would imagine it's beating the hell out of the rug in the house too. He says, yeah, I've had to replace that rug 2-3 times because of fading discoloration. It's bad. And I said, well, sir, what I would suggest is not getting the whole house looked at right now. Anyways, I would suggest just getting that one window looked at because it's costing you more money now. And it's probably costing you a ton of money on your energy bills in the summertime too, right? It's not comfortable for your family. And the guy goes, yeah, okay, yeah, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. Okay. I'll tell you what, I'll look at just that one window. Okay. And it made total sense to the guy, right? I can think of countless examples of this, where resetting the appointment makes more sense to the customer. Again, person on fixed income, Social Security. Okay. They don't have a ton of money. Again, let's focus on the rooms they spend the most time in. Me and Will walked the door a year ago, or knocked the door a year ago. The dude was this old guy. Okay, he didn't set with us, but he had this nice, beautiful house on a big piece of property. But he had one room in the house. His wife had died. He had one room in the house blocked off that he was heating. He didn't even heat the kitchen or the living room or anything. Just this one big, what used to be a living room now is his bedroom. There's a bathroom in there too. So it didn't make sense to do all the windows. It just made sense to do the 2 windows that are in his room that he uses. Great. Reset the appointment there.
Hey, Paul.
Yep.
So let's say we get them down to, like you said, one big window. That's the biggest issue. Do we still push the 90-minute rule?
Yeah, 100%.
I got you.
Yep. Yeah, it's not even about pushing the 90-minute rules. We just have standard. We'll get to that in a second.
Not my bad. 90-minute standard.
Yeah. We'll go through that. It's just that's standard no matter what. If they call into the office and they need to get one window looked at, because the time is not taken in looking at the windows really. Either way, it's going to take between 10 and 20 minutes probably. The time is spent in everything else, and we want to be safe and make sure they have enough time to be able to buy the windows that they decide to. So I'll go through that though in a minute. I still got to go through lead quality, which I'll go through in a minute. But before we go through that, the last thing that you want to do, okay? So when you get through, you get through the amount of windows, all that kind of stuff, breaking down the job size. The last thing you want to do before you leave is you want to go for a callback. Now, again, a callback is not a win, okay? Eli and I were talking about this the other day. I said, you should never be proud of callbacks. Never. And why am I so adamant about that? Because I've seen people get proud of callbacks before. They come back with 10 callbacks, they come back with 20 callbacks. There is no guarantee that any of those are going to go through. If you're writing good appointments, there's a guarantee that probably 60%, at a minimum 50%, at a maximum probably 75% of those are going to go through. If you come back with a ton of callbacks, there is no guarantee those are going to go through. None. That said, I'm a big believer in loading the system with names because it gives the call center stuff to work on, and you'll get paid on it either way. So like, let's say, for example, I put a bunch of callbacks in the system, and the call center calls one of those callbacks, it sets it, goes through. I see it as your lead anyways. Like when I see the lead, it's under your name anyways. So it's not going to change anything for your commissions. Now, when I first started, callbacks were only worth $10 a piece. So what we would do is we would sandbag our callbacks and call them ourselves, because why would I want the $10 a piece if the call center calls it? That's not a thing anymore. You get paid full for callbacks. It's just a demo. When it goes through, it's just a demo. So you should load the system with names. Here's what you should be proud of. If you got 3 leads, you should have 3 callbacks. If you got 5 leads, you should have 5 callbacks. I try to get something from every house I go to, because why not? It's a name that was not in the system before. Unless they have brand new windows, even if they do, unless they have brand new renewal by Andersen windows, then I'm going for it. Might as well. Okay. All right. If you guys do that, then I hope you understand how much commission you're going to make. Like, we'll go through that in a second too, but it's going to be significant. So briefly, I want to touch on these standards that we have, just because there is a lot of people from different offices on here. I think in Central PA, we've exhausted, the commitments and stuff like that. We've gone through all that stuff a lot. But for other people, they might not have gone through this as much. So the standards that we ask for from a customer for an appointment are extremely important. They're extremely important, especially to cancellation rate and demo rate. In order for your lead to count, for it to matter, you don't want it to cancel because the call center asked them for 90 minutes whenever they call to confirm, and we said it might not take that long. So no matter what, the language that we should use with the customer on the 90 minutes is, all we need are 2 things. First, we need you to set aside at least 90 minutes, whether we need it or not. Fair enough. Don't say it might not take that long don't say up to 90 minutes, at least 90 minutes, whether we need it or not. The reason why is because, again, we want control over the quality of that appointment. If we leave the call center or somebody else in control of the quality, there's less of a chance for it to go through. Second, when we visit to discuss the project, we need to speak with all owners of the property, including you, a spouse, a family member, or significant other. Now, the reason why we're so specific in that list is because people have different situations, right? Sorry, hard candy's always keep me awake now. I need to get caffeine after. Mio Energy's not doing it for me anymore. All right. So what that list means is a spouse obviously would mean a wife, girlfriend or boyfriend, but typically a husband or wife. Significant other would mean boyfriend or girlfriend in any relationship. So whether it was, boyfriend and boyfriend, boyfriend and girlfriend, girlfriend and whatever. In any relationship, it would mean the significant other would be the person, obviously, that they're dating. Family member would be occasionally, let's say a house is left to a brother, sister. Okay. Now, let's say the brother is out of state. Okay. We got to be reasonable. We're not going to make the brother come back from Florida for a window appointment. But if the brother lives right down the street, then we do want to ask that they're both there, because it's going to eliminate reasons for those leads to cancel. So it just makes sense to try to get both people there. You know what I mean? That said, the standard is that all owners of the home need to be there and decision makers. Now, what does that mean? The dicey part that people get stuck on more often than they should is, what about a live-in boyfriend or girlfriend? And what I would say is that if you know about it, that means the customer has made that person important. So let's say that you come up to me and you say, hey, when we visit to discuss a project, we need to meet with all the owners of the property, including you, a spouse, a family member, or significant other. Who would that be? And I said, oh, my girlfriend, Kim. Okay. I just made that person important. If they live there, they have to be there. Why? Because they become the excuse. Okay. So let's say that our sales rep goes out there and they go, okay, here's the price. The first thing that John Smith is going to say is, oh, I got to talk to Kim about that. Right? We're trying to avoid that coming up. That's why it's so important to have both those people there if they live together. Now, if it's somebody that the person started dating 3 weeks ago, then no, of course they don't need to be there. But again, why would they give you their name if that was the situation? If I walked up to your house and asked and told you that we need all owners of the property, including you, a spouse, a family member, a significant other, would you tell me your Tinder date's name? Right? No, obviously not. That would be ridiculous, right? So if they gave the name, they've made that person important. That's why they become important, right? Any questions on that? Okay. All right, cool. So we're getting close to the end of this, guys. Any more questions on the rebuttals?
I don't have a question, but a lot of that helped me out because I wasn't utilizing half of that. So that's something I need to start, and I'll definitely have questions from there.
Good. Okay, good. Awesome. Well, that's good to hear. And
You
here's the thing,
answered.
guys.
You pretty much answered my question. My biggest problem is folks just straight up not answering the door.
Yeah. So the only thing you can do about that is we went through it early in the video, and I will cut these up and release them as like videos too because it is recorded. the only thing you can do about that is control what's in your control. So the knock times, obviously, that we're knocking are important. When I first started, we would knock from 1 to 9. Uh, uh, we're not gonna mandate that now. But if we ever get to a place where we realize that no one's answering the door, then we might need a mandate 1 to 9. I don't think that will be there because I see people like Austin Johnson, AJ, who works part time for us. He goes out there and gets 6 appointments and will work from 9 to 2. He's an independent canvasser, and he gets people home. The biggest thing I think is,
Where does he live?
St. Louis.
Yeah.
Where you live, this idea, because this has come up, I've been asked this a couple times now, especially by people in Memphis, that where you live matters. I've canvassed all over the country. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't.
You didn't canvass in Memphis.
Okay, well then I'll tell you what, quit. That's the best thing to do.
No, I'm asking. I'm asking. Like, have you canvassed in Memphis?
No, but it doesn't. But again, I've canvassed in San Francisco. I've canvassed in DC, Virginia, New York City,
Mhm.
and New York State, Boston,
Right.
St. Louis. You know what I mean? If the job can't be done there, quit. I guarantee you I can find someone that can do it. And that's the reality. It's like it doesn't. If you're in Memphis and you're in a bad neighborhood where people don't answer the door or something like that, then go to a different neighborhood. Go outside Memphis. I don't know Memphis.
Hold on.
But
We can do that.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, the territory reaches from the very top of Mississippi over to, I forget the name of the town, but like pretty far over past Memphis. And
I
then
didn't
up
know
to the
that.
north of the
Yeah,
state.
I didn't know we can do that. I didn't know we can
Oh
go
yeah, for
like
sure.
so we can go to South Haven, Olive Branch.
I don't know the specific. I'm sure we can. If it's
Okay.
near Memphis,
Okay.
within like 45 minutes, then yeah, 100%. Within like an hour and a
Gotcha.
half, really. But if it's within
Okay.
45 minutes, definitely.
Gotcha.
100%. Now,
Yeah, that was you didn't tell me a lot of today then with that then.
yeah, oh
I
yeah,
really
100%.
didn't even know we could do that.
Oh yeah, the territory reaches vast and wide. You know what I mean? I don't. That's why I was confused. I was like, why do people keep giving me these zip codes just in Memphis? But that makes sense if you didn't know that for sure. Yeah, yeah. 100. I can get a zip code list too, so I'll do that. The rest of this week I'll do that. So because here's the thing is like yeah, if you're knocking an area that's like that there's a lot of break-ins and stuff like that, well then yeah, you're probably going to get less people answer. When we were knocking in St. Louis, that's one struggle that we definitely had in the first neighborhood. But a lot of things I noticed too is like people have ring doorbells. People are avoiding ring the ring doorbells. Ring the ring doorbells. Knock on the door louder. Stick by for a couple extra minutes. There's stuff that you can do. That said, sure, if there's a high crime rate in an area, then people are going to be less apt to answer the door. But there's plenty of low crime rate areas in every territory that we have. You know what I mean? So yeah, we can definitely arrange that 100%. My thing is eliminating objections or issues is the best, most important thing. So take, for example, let me give you an example. Right? What's one of the areas that you named there for, like you said, lock something? One of the good areas that you named. Right.
You said good areas?
Yeah, yep.
Well, you got 38119. That's a pretty you mean like you saying good like as far as like crime rate and all that or
Yeah, one of the areas that you just named. Like when I said, yeah, you can knock outside Memphis. What was one of the areas?
Olive Branch,
Okay, cool. Do you know the zip code for all of
South
that?
Haven.
Do you know the zip code there by chance?
38671. I know that's one of the zip codes, 38671.
All right, so I can go on the website, even just this is just Renewal by Anderson website, and yeah, I can check where each like all you do is you put the zip code in, and if it pops up like right there, for example, I change my location to that location, and then the office that pops up is replacement windows in Memphis, Tennessee, and then I click retailer information, and I see that the showroom is the showroom on Senator Street. So yeah, we can definitely do that area, for example. So I can put you in 38671, no problem. You know what I mean? No problem.
Yeah. So that's
Uh,
that's South Haven. I'm trying to think of Olive Branch.
well, it's fine. Let's try that maybe on Friday, right? And then see how that works out. Uh,
Gotcha.
yeah, that might be good. So let's try that. So
Okay.
so the biggest thing is when there's a problem figuring out, and of course, again, like if I'm when we were in St. Louis, we were in two different neighborhoods the day that I was knocking out there. The first neighborhood, you could tell, well, actually, you could tell just because people told me. Every person that I set up and every person that answered the door had said that they had a break in within like the last year. And it definitely impacted people answering the door. But the neighborhood right next to that we went to, and we set leads still. We set every person we booked or we talked to, but the neighborhood right next to that was big, much bigger houses, and it was weird because it was literally right next door, but nobody had mentioned anything like that, and every person answered the door. Now we didn't have as much success in there. I don't know why. I mean, I know that one or two of my pitches I definitely looked at. I was like, I could have done more there for sure. But we definitely talked to more people. We talked to almost every person in one neighborhood. So that's a thing. It's just about figuring out ways around that. And I think this is a good workaround for that. Okay, so let's talk about goal setting then, because I'm telling you, if you do this stuff, think about it like this. I'm going to bring up a piece of paper real quick on here. We'll just use the same copy that we're using. All right. So we're talking about goals earlier as a team, right? And so 2026, we talked about getting this low amount of goal. Now, when I say low, $86 million doesn't look low, but it's not even close to what I would. And by the way, too, if you guys have questions, just because I see the chat now, but I have to like it doesn't pop up unless I'm like looking for it. Just just start talking. It's fine, 100% fine. Especially now we got 15 minutes left. So this $87 million doesn't seem low. Except for, I mean, if you've been in Central PA, then it probably seems low because a lot of that is going to come directly from Central PA. And we've done, as an office, 55 million before. So 30 million is more than that, but it's not like an insane amount more than that. That said, this is just 2026. And it's actually a little bit more than that because I didn't even add Arkansas and Louisiana into that. We talked about 2027 being at least 168 million, but getting to 200 million in 2027. It's going to be all about what we do, but we need high performers. So what is a high performer in this job? Well, here's the thing. There's two different kinds of high performers. Okay. There's talent-based high performers, right? They're just it's a pure talent to them. They could work 10 hours a week and see a high level of success in the job. And then you have people like me. I was never one of those kind of high performers. I was always a hardworking high performer. I see, the reality of it is I wanted to stay away from drugs. And so I put a lot of time into work because I figured, okay, if I go home tired, I'm not going to want to go out and do all this stupid shit. So I'm just going to go home tired every day. And I was a boxer. So I'd wake up at 5 a.m. or so, 4:30. I would go to the gym till about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. And then I would head off to do recruiting for my team. Or when I was a canvasser, I'd go to the office and practice and study and stuff like that. And I'd stay there until like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. And I would do callbacks every night. I don't expect people to do that. I worked every single day off. I was working 7 days a week up until literally my wife back in 2013 or 2014, when she moved down in 2013, I think, to Pennsylvania after we had dated for a few months. And then she had said when she moved down, hey, if you're working 7 days a week, I don't want to move down there because I have a daughter. Like, we want to be able to spend time with you, stuff like that. Now I'm like, no. I'll work 5 days a week. It'll be fine. And then the first couple months, I worked 7 days a week. I didn't even think about it. You know what I mean? I didn't even think about it. Then one day I came home and all of her shit was packed. And she's like, I'm leaving. You know what I mean? She's like, I can't do this. And I'm like, okay, we got to figure something out here. Um, and uh, uh, and so I changed my schedule to work 6 days a week, and I've been on a 6 day a week schedule ever since then. And I like it. I like having one day where I don't have to think as much about stuff. I feel like if I relegate it to one day, really one and a half, then I think less about work. If it was two, I would have anxiety by day two that stuff needs to be done and stuff like that or whatever. But not everybody operates that way. I understand that people value their time. I value my time too, but understand that I devoted my entire life from the age of 11 years old to really to 30, but on and off from 26 to 30 to just drugs, to just doing drugs and getting in trouble. I mean, at 11 years old, I started doing coke, and by 14, I was kicked out of my house, 16, kicked out of school, and all of my time was devoted to just doing drugs. And I'm paying the price now, by the way, too. Now I feel, and the doctor feels, like, man, okay, you all this stuff that you did years ago is really catching up to you, and there's a lot of extra work that goes into just being basic health issues because of drugs years ago that I never thought would catch up to me if I stopped. And they did. So my point is that, like, if that took up 100% of my time years ago, I can devote 85% of my time to work. There's that guy from Shark Tank, Kevin whatever, the Mr. Wonderful guy. I was watching a video of his yesterday. I'm not really big into like the motivational videos, stuff like that. But he was talking about Steve Jobs. He worked for Steve Jobs, and he said that Steve Jobs had this rule that 85% he had to have 85% of his time was spent on I forget what he called it, but signal, which meant like focused on the top 3 or 4 things that he needed to get done, and 15% of his time was spent on noise. And he describes Elon Musk being the only person probably ever that's 100% signal, zero noise. I don't know if I agree with that or not. I mean, I've seen him do some stupid shit, but either way, the point is the same. If you're devoting your time to work, and again, I understand that my life and my desires are different than other people's. I feel like is a huge flaw for some people that are really motivated, where they think everyone should operate that way, in that they're not motivated if they don't operate that way. And I don't think that's true. I think that family is extremely important. I think that friends can be extremely important, and free time is extremely important. I think it really is. I think that you can live in a world where you have an expectation for yourself and a slightly different expectation for everybody else. So my only expectation for you is that when you're here at the time that you're supposed to be here, take all your PTO every year. Do your thing. I'll make sure that unless I really, really have to, I'm not calling you while you're off. Take your time, do your thing while you're here. Just be devoted to this. That's it. You know what I mean? That said, there's some people that want to put in extra time, that want to put in extra effort, and I support that too. I think it's a great way to live, either way. So when you look at how you're doing and how you got to get there, now I am a big believer in if you put work in now, it can pay off later. So let's talk about that a little bit. So if you're out on the road, okay, now you have all this stuff that we talked about or whatever, and if you actually put it into place, it takes a couple steps. Like, it's not just going to happen tomorrow, okay? But if you put this stuff into place, then you'll see your numbers increase. First thing is you have to have the script down. You have to have the foundation. All right. Then what you'll see is, guys, you'll see this. You'll see a couple things happen. Immediately, all right, you'll see, let's see, number of leads, number of canceled, number of demos. Okay. You'll see a couple things happen. When you go on the road, you'll write at least 12 appointments per week. Okay, 12 appointments per week. That's not a record. That's not even great. Okay, that's fine. I think it's great for a lot of you that haven't gotten there yet. I think that's perfectly fine. I think for a lot of you guys, I need to look at some things, because for some people, I don't even know that they're working. Like I can't, most people, yes, they are, but some people I'm like, how are we, we're getting nothing. I mean, I have accidentally written leads, more than some people. So we got to figure that out. But 12 leads a week is a good standard to hold yourself to. Even when we had a shitty system and script when I first started, and people averaged 10, I think 12 is a good number to look for, right? That's what, 3 per day? Not even. That's not even 3 per day. It's like 2.2 or 2.4 per day. So I'm bad with math, but if you get 12 leads per week, then you're going to have between 5 and 7 demos per week. Okay. And you're going to have, that means if you have 5 or 7 demos per week, you're going to have between what? I'm bad with math. What's that? 7 to 6, 7 to 5, 7 to 5 cancellations. Yeah, it's the same thing. Cancels as well. Now you might go, well, why are you putting cancels in there? Well, cancels are important. Cancels don't disappear, right? Cancels get called. Eventually they can go through. Demos are obviously the most important, but cancellations get called still, and they still can go through eventually, right? A lot of them do. At least 10 to 20% of them do. Callbacks, if you're getting 12 sets, then you should get at least 12 callbacks. 12 callbacks per week is going to lead to typically 1 to 2 demos per week. Okay. You're also going to then, if you have 1 to 2 demos per week from them, you're also going to have 10, I'll call it cancels, but you'll have 10 callbacks in there that remain in the system that are still being called. They're still being worked by the call center. And again, they stay in your name. Okay. They stay in your name. Now, let's just say, for example, you want to do more. And eventually we'll have, so right now, because the North Star system in Pennsylvania, and because we don't have the experience in it yet in the other offices, you can't do this right now, but you can, and you will eventually be able to call your own callbacks as well. And so, like, let's say that you wanted to do that. You want to put a couple hours a week into that. And let's say that you were making between 100 and 200 calls per week, okay? That would take you probably 3 hours or so per week, maybe 4 maximum, okay? If you're then setting 10% of those people, which is extremely reasonable, I mean, let's just not even say 10. That's way too many. Let's say that you're setting 5% of those people even, okay? Then you're setting between, what, 5 and 10 more leads per week. And you're going to get, that means, let's say it's a high cancellation rate. Let's say that you're getting 3 to 5 demos even from that, okay? Think about the amount of commissions that you're going to have. In addition, eventually, like right now in Pennsylvania, we do have some overtime hours available because of the historic success with overtime hours. Eventually, we'll have that in the other offices as well, where you'll be able to work an additional day if you want to, completely optional. But let's say that you're working an additional day and you're getting another 3 sets on that day. It's usually a Saturday, 9 to 3, something like that. All right, you're also getting paid time and a half for it. And let's say that you're getting an extra 1 to 2 demos, right? You're also getting an extra 1 to 2 cancels, which again are not a negative thing. You're also probably getting 3 callbacks. And that's going to be between 0 and 1 demos. And also, up to 3 cancels or callbacks, right? So my point is that, guys, when you start to look at your week, all right, you're looking at, on a low end, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 demos, okay, on a low end, to, on a high end, 7, 8, 9, 14, 15, 16 to 17 demos per week. That's a significant amount of commission in addition to all these cancellations that will go through. When you go take that PTO week, you got a vacation week, and you have, 10 demos go through because the call center's working your stuff, you have commission coming in even when you're off of work. So my point is that this job is not just not impossible. I've been doing it for 17 years, and I have done it all over the country, from Toronto to Philadelphia to San Francisco, Colorado, everywhere. And it's not just a job that can make you some money or can get you to, $30 an hour. No, it should get you well above that. And most importantly, it provides the growth opportunity for you to make $100,000 to $200,000 a year, and to make transformative money for your family. Right now, when in no location are we working this properly, you might go, well, then how do you know that this can be done? Because I've seen 65 leads set in a week multiple times. I've seen 25 demos in a week. I've seen half an office average 12 demos for 6 weeks in a row. I've seen almost every person average 5 to 7 demos that we've hired. I know it's not just can be done. I know that in some locations it's being done right now. So you might go, oh, well, we're so far removed from that or whatever. Yeah, the reason why you're far removed from that is because the training that we just did for 4 hours, that's what the difference is. For 4 hours. I've been talking about this for 4 hours now. That's the difference. And whether you're in central Pennsylvania and you're going, oh shit, I forgot about resetting the appointments, and I forgot about asking, oh, well, instead you should do this, telling people that, or whatever, and you're averaging 2 right now, but you want to be at 4 or 5, or you're in Memphis or Southwest Missouri or St. Louis, and you're just basically getting started in the job because you hadn't had the training before. These things can be extremely transformative. Now, you have a path to take. So tomorrow we come into work. You can go out there, even if you don't study the script and stuff like that, you'll still do better if you use some of this stuff. But you have a path that you can either go out there and perform or not. The biggest difference between somebody that sees success and doesn't is them knowing that they're going to get leads. The reason why you got some people that have never zeroed out ever, and some people that zero out 3-4 days in a row is their belief system. If I know, okay, this is automatic for me, like I know no matter what, no matter where, if I go canvas somewhere, as long as I'm in front of a person or people, I'm going to write leads. How many? I don't know. What the quality is going to be, I can give you a range. I don't know though, but I know I'm going to set appointments. It doesn't matter if you put me in a Starbucks or if you put me in the middle of a mall or if you put me on the road. Customers are there. I'm going to schedule appointments. I know that, right? 17 years tells me that. That being said, the only people that are not right for this job are people that don't believe in it, people that don't believe they can do it. Unfortunately, for some of you guys, that didn't start off the right way for you. You were not taught anything, or you were taught by people that didn't send that message, that didn't understand that message. I look at Southwest Missouri and I go, their manager made it sound like I was a demon that was going to come in and take their jobs at any point in time. You know what I mean? For 4 months or whatever, right? And that wasn't a message coming from me. You know what I mean? This is the message coming from me. So, but that's gone now. It's done now. You know what I mean? And so, or I look at like Memphis, where Marcus was an incredible person, didn't get the right training himself from the start, and unfortunately passed away. Great man, great family man. But same struggle because the training wasn't there. You know what I mean? So it doesn't really matter what, like we can, I can go, well, this guy was bad, this guy was good, this guy, the right training wasn't there, the right system wasn't there for years, but now it is. I guarantee you that this works, but you have to believe it. If you don't, then automatically, the reason why I tell people, this is what I say to managers and team leads. If someone zeroes out on the road, you got to get with them the next day. You have to. Like you cannot let that wait. You can't go, oh, I'll get to you in a week. No, like if they zero out in a day, even if you're not on the road with them, because sometimes you can't. Like if you're a team lead, you're training a new person for 3 days. you can't go, oh, this person's zeroed out. I'm going to get on the road with them tomorrow and skip your training. But no, that person, if they're on my team, was coming in 15 minutes early, just 15 minutes. And we're just going, hey, what happened? Well, look, are you good today? Do you feel like you're going to be fine? All right, cool. Head check at the very least, because it's not a natural thing to get zero. It's not. It's not a normal thing to get zero. But if you let that go for a day and then it becomes 2 days, it starts to become natural. By day 3, that person's done. Like, to be honest, and this is going to be the unfortunate thing with some people that are working here now, even that have experienced that, is they've been taught for day after day after day that they can't get leads. That gets stuck in their mind, and it becomes impossible to pull them out of it. So you, as a leader, or a teammate, you have to prevent that from happening, and that's what we have to work towards right now. You know what I mean? That's what we have to work towards right now. So it's 2026 now. The biggest message that I have, especially for Central Pennsylvania, but really for all you guys, is just get rid of 2025. When it comes to work, it doesn't matter. Hopefully you had some great things happen this year. In general, for our jobs, there's been a lot of change. I think a lot of fear for some people for different reasons. Central Pennsylvania getting bought out, I think, scared a lot of people, even though it really shouldn't have, from Pennsylvania. I think that it also made a lot of changes positive, but didn't look positive for the other offices. But what I want to show you guys is, again, last thing, these are the numbers for the Pennsylvania offices for the last whatever amount of years. If you look at Central Pennsylvania right here, January of 2020, we over doubled what we had in 2019. We had been in office since 2016 doing this. So that's a huge thing. Same thing, by the way, in February. We ended up at 466. So we did higher than January and much higher than the prior February at 309. In March, we issued 331. Well, what happened? COVID happened. They shut us down for COVID. So if you look, that was the scariest part of my career ever, 17 years. This we did in 10 days. We would have issued 900 appointments in March, okay? 57 the next month because COVID, we were shut down. 93 the next month because of COVID, we shut down. We started doing this stuff with the grocery stores here, 128, 113, 95, but it wasn't the same. And then wintertime, that kind of shut down, 40, 44. It was terrible. That was COVID that did that. We were allowed to canvass again in April of the next year. We did 268 with 5 people, 6 people. 268 with 6 people. That's issued leads. 323 with 7 or 8 people. And then we started to grow again. My point is this, guys. Look at this. March of 2020, let's say March of 2021, we were shut down for COVID, 44. 1 year later, 447. 1 year later, 632. 1 year later, 721. 1 year later, 737. This is a goal for this year. You get my point, guys. Things can change extremely quickly. They can change extremely quickly, right? Good and bad. But right now, all good is in front of us. We've had a rough year, a weird year, but right now it's all good in front of us. So let's just focus on that. Let's focus on making sure that we are driving production, and that we're winning as a team. If we win as a team, that means everyone on the team did pretty well. Okay. Any last questions before we jump off?
Hey, Paul. I know you said like callbacks and all that stuff's gonna come back eventually. The one thing, like with the beginning part of the script with doing the work, just finishing up work for whoever, wherever. With the system we have now, like it was awesome before going out, being able to pull up PCs. Relatively easy. I've had the guys more kind of change that around a little bit due to
We shouldn't do
no,
that.
no,
We've been doing that the wrong way for the last 5 years. We should be doing the pre-work before we go into neighborhoods to get a couple addresses in an area. We shouldn't have every person pull up the PCs in the area because it takes too much time anyways. Um, so what I used to do forever on my team was before we like right when we got into a town, when I was mapping it, I would look up a couple sales that, which you can still do. You can go to the sales manager if you have to, but you can still, I can have Carly figure out a way to do that for sure. I would look up a few key sales in whatever given area, not just in a specific neighborhood, but in whatever given area. And I would have everybody use the same sales. That way everybody was doing the same thing in an area. So it might be, there might be 6 or 7 sales that I'm giving to people, maybe 8. But two here, two here, two here. You know what I mean? And I would just do the pre-work for it, just to make sure that everyone's saying the same thing and that the jobs that I'm giving them are complete jobs that have been done pretty recently and not just some random customer from 3 years ago, 4 years ago. You know what I mean? Because that's the danger in that anyways. If they're looking up a PC, these guys aren't, most of them aren't checking, oh, was that a door? Was that a window? Was that one window in the attic? Okay, well, cool. Now I'm saying we just did a job for Mrs. Jones on the street. If they were to drive down the street and there's one attic window that's done by Renewal by Anderson, they can't even see it. It looks like we did a junky job in their home, right? So I would take more control over that anyways, and just do the pre-work when you go into a town to find 5, 6, 7, 8 jobs in the town that are pretty prominent on pretty prominent streets that people are going to know, and I would utilize that, right? If the new system's giving you a problem with doing that, then I can definitely find a workaround for that. Canvassers will eventually, I mean, very, very soon have access to stuff that drives me crazy. Trust me. Like I said, I'll go on strike if it's not done by the 15th of January. But, and eventually, because of R Force, the sales should be preloaded into Ground Force, which will be great. But that's probably not till February, the Ground Force thing. But for now, that's what I would definitely do. I would just do the pre-work for it. Does that make sense?
makes sense.
It's easier and more controllable anyways. Yeah, I've seen so many canvassers spend so much time on the road looking up like jobs that we've done that I'm sitting there going, man, you're skipping, 20 houses looking up PCs. Now, I know it's not everybody, but there's definitely some people that just get so bogged down in it that they'll get to a street and they'll go, okay, let me look for PCs, and they'll copy them all down. And it's like, all right, we're spending way too much time on that. And I don't think the value is there. I think if you tell a customer, like in my area, Lisburn Road, that's going to make a lot more sense than, James Street. That's like in Boiling Springs and like this little cul-de-sac that nobody knows. So that's what I would do. Same thing for you guys in the other offices too. I can, from Memphis, I can do this for you guys for the time being. I did go through with Bree how to look through enabled and whatnot, because you guys aren't on R Force yet. Yet. It's a good thing, trust me. Where it's getting worked out, and I've seen the changes that they're starting to make, and it's good, but it's just different. And Eli, I can show you how to do that too, pretty easily. But we definitely want to get a couple jobs in each area that we go to, especially on main roads. It makes it so much easier when talking to the customers to refer back to finishing a job. There's actually a world where hopefully soon we're getting fresh install updates, and we can actually say, hey, there's a job being installed today on 123 Main Street. So I stopped by, but that's probably a couple months down the line. But it will be cool. We can do that, there's a lot of options as we move into the new year. Like one of the other things that we can do is hit a territory like simultaneously with direct mail. Now the benefit of that is that a lot of times, and this is why we go back to neighborhood so many times, is that a lot of customers take 8 visits by one of our door-to-door people before they decide to take a look at the windows. If we couple ourselves up with like direct mail, for example, then we're getting some of the marketing done by direct mail, and then we're showing up and with the customers familiar with us being there. even if we haven't been there yet. So there's just different things that we can do going into the new year that hopefully hopefully have an impact. But the biggest thing is if we get in front of people, then you guys all know this. We get in front of people, then the customers are there. We just have to work it out. So